Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies, recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Madeline.
I'm Emilio.
And I'm Julian. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. You can also follow us on YouTube or on Instagram, and we're on TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. And while we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we finish out our current cycle where we discuss Oscar-Worthy Rom-Coms with a category we call Close-Up, a deeper dive into the career of a professional in the movie business. We often focus on some lesser-known figures like character actors or writer-directors and discuss at least 3 of their representative works and the characteristics that exist throughout.
Yes, and it's a close-up first for us because we are highlighting a writer this time, one who really made a name for himself as a celebrated playwright, but whose romantic comedies in the form of movies got plenty of attention from the Oscars. We are talking Neil Simon, and the films of his that we'll be discussing are Barefoot in the Park from 1967, which was the film version of his hit play from a few years before. Then we're going to talk The Heartbreak Kid from 1972, one of his first adaptations from a different writer's work, and The Goodbye Girl from 1977, one of his more successful films written specifically for the screen. And joining us today at the table is a talented editor and professional in the world of TV and film. I first got a chance to chat with him when I saw the work he did on a film written and directed by my dear friend and past guest on the podcast, Anu Valia. That film was We Strangers, which I'll say any chance I get, I would highly recommend you should all go see it. He has a growing list of credits as an editor, including documentaries like Lonely Whale, Seaweed Stories, and the recently released rock doc Ron Delsener Presents. This is his second time joining us, as last year he came to break down the original Black Christmas with us. If you have not checked out that episode, please do. It was a lot of fun. And when he rolled up, he was wearing a pin that caught all of our eyes. We could not place who it was, but when he shared with us that it was none other than writer, director, comedian Elaine May, it was confirmed for us once and for all just what great taste this gentleman had. So when we knew that we were covering a film directed by Miss May, there was no one else we considered reaching out to for this talk. James Codoyannis, welcome back to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much.
And as I was reading that, you pulled out your hat, which does have...
I clutched my hat.
You clutched. Thank you. Sorry to misrepresent that. Yes, there's that pin.
Elaine is joining us today for this conversation.
There she is.
As she should.
She says hello.
James, how have you been, man?
I've been okay.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Hanging out.
I know we've all been chatting for a little bit before we hit record on this, and it's always great to have you. Thank you so much for making the time.
I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much for having me and re-inviting me. Or wait, inviting me again? Wait,
yeah.
Yes. Thanks for having me a second time. This is terrific.
Yeah, I think we were all very excited to have you back. The Black Christmas episode was a lot of fun.
That was a blast,
I think I speak for all of us when I say that.
For sure.
And I have to highlight too that in the time since then, like, you have a very powerful social media presence as well.
Oh,
yeah, and it comes as a bit of a surprise, based on your reaction there, but I have to say, like, the thing that I saw you post on Instagram that really stuck with me in the last few months was that year-end list.
Oh, yes.
Of the 30 best movies to you of 2025. Because, like, when I think of year-end lists, I feel like I don't seek them out very much, but the montage that you arranged there, like, there are moments of that I've replayed in my head, and I watched it only once, so take that for what it's worth.
You're also a good Letterboxd follow.
Yes.
So I feel like We'll plug those at the end, but everyone go follow James on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words about my socials.
Yeah.
It's always like a tricky, dubious thing to get involved with, but you've figured it out, man.
I feel like I post very infrequently, I have to say, but I make them count.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I post pretty infrequently too, but I've been told by those who have seen things I post that they count. So, I mean, I guess it's a little self-aggrandizing to say that, but I'm, doing my best to channel external testimonials.
Yeah,
Right.
my habits are a little bit different though when it comes to Letterboxd, because Letterboxd, I feel like I do watch a lot of movies, and I feel, that is my diary, my social diary, so to speak.
There we go.
For all the world to see.
Yeah. I love doing it. I need to get better at the rhythm of posting. Because that's the thing I feel like holds me back with Letterboxd. I see a lot too, and I want to talk about them. I just know that I need to give myself the time to get immersed if I'm going to.
Yeah, but there's also no shame in just like a little log.
It's true.
I logged. I watched that film. That.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Some movies that feels right. Other times I have to write like 3 paragraphs.
Right.
Yeah.
That does come up.
Yeah.
Well, because this is a close-up episode, we are going to talk 3 movies tonight. So
That's
we better
correct.
get started. And first up, we are going to be talking about Barefoot in the Park, as you said, which was written by Neil Simon, adapted from his play, and directed by Gene Sachs, starring Robert Redford and Jane Fonda in the 2 lead roles, and then also Charles Boyer and Mildred Natwick. But we should say that Barefoot in the Park is not to be confused with the Barefoot Contessa.
I wrote that one down.
I figured multiple of us would be, which is why I tried to get it in first.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, please do.
The 1954 film starring Humphrey Bogart and Ava Gardner about a washed-up filmmaker who discovers a stunning peasant at a Madrid nightclub and attempts to make her a star.
I've never seen this movie, but the name always stuck out to me.
Yeah.
It's
I
very
think the
memorable.
first time I ever heard of this is they reference it on Gilmore Girls. So I was like, that sounds interesting. But I don't think I've seen it since I was a teen, probably.
Got it.
Well, I have not seen that film. I can only say I knew it by name before. I'd love to imagine Humphrey Bogart saying that, the Barefoot Contessa. But yes, Barefoot in the Park, given the time that it was released and the city in which it's set, that is the great New York City in which we are recording this right now, Barefoot in the Park is a few years ahead of a movie that it could be confused with. It is not to be confused with The Panic in Needle Park.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Barefoot in the Park is just like on the edge of the New Hollywood era, but Panic in Needle Park is firmly in New Hollywood. Directed by Jerry Schatzberg, who's almost 100 years old and still alive, incredibly. An important career step for Al Pacino right before The Godfather. Also Kitty Wynn alongside him. I haven't seen this movie yet. I've heard only good things about it. Need to check that off sometime soon.
I've seen it. I think you're going to really like it. It holds up pretty well. I think
I could imagine
the themes and stuff and the performances. So
yeah,
definitely.
But yeah, The Panic in Needle Park, not to be confused with Barefoot in the Park, even though wouldn't surprise me if some of those characters are barefoot in a few scenes.
yeah, absolutely.
Barefoot in the Park is not to be confused with Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh yeah,
That is very true.
The 1984 musical by James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim. Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah. And we're talking about, titans of the theater
Yeah.
with Neil Simon, and got to throw in some Stephen Sondheim.
You got to throw in some Sondheim.
But with Sondheim, it's a musical, and Neil Simon. I mean, I'm not very well versed in his resume. Everything I've engaged with so far has been purely dramatic, but
He's done musicals.
yes, I'm not surprised. And I actually came upon the anecdote listening to the Blank Check episode about the Heartbreak Kid in preparation for this, that he tried to get a Heartbreak Kid musical going for years unsuccessfully.
Oh, fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to say, for Sundays in the Park with George, one of my jobs here at the music school where we work is to tell potential students about, teachers and days and times that work for them. And we have a teacher named George who doesn't currently teach on Sundays, but has in the past. And I'll be, whenever I'm typing, like, hello, yes. So George is available on Sundays. Then I always start thinking of Sundays in the Park with George. I was like, would you like to have Sundays at the music school with George?
Yeah.
Sunday in the Park with George.
Yeah, and Sunday in the Park with George, not to be confused with this very specific circumstance that you find yourself in.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, this movie stars Robert Redford, who was known by his friends and colleagues as Bob, and he does end up in a New York City park. So we should not confuse Barefoot in the Park with a short film from 2019 called Bob of the Park about a polarizing bird watcher who frequents Central Park named Robert DiCandido. This was directed by Jake Sumner and co-written and edited by our guest.
Ooh.
Wow.
That was me. I've seen that movie.
I hope so.
That's a good movie. Check it out.
I did check it out. It's quite good.
Yeah, it's cute.
But yes, I very compelling. Do not confuse Bob of the Park with Barefoot in the Park.
Yeah, and I guess you can't confuse Bob of the Park with George of the Jungle, and maybe that's a he's in
Sunday
that
the Park
jungle
with
on
George.
Sundays.
Sunday in the Park with George in the jungle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To what extent do jungles and parks overlap? Ask George. All right, but yes, we're not talking about any of those anymore. Anyway, we're talking about Barefoot in the Park. So we've said a lot about who wrote this, what it's not, when it came out, who's in it. But what is this movie about?
Great question. So we meet newlyweds Paul and Corey literally moments after their wedding in a horse-drawn carriage as they approach the Plaza Hotel for their honeymoon. After a week of bliss, they move into their brand new apartment and are soon confronted with the first challenges of their fledgling marriage. The furniture delivery is late, the heat doesn't work, there's a hole in the skylight, and they have to hike 5 flights of stairs if you don't count the stoop outside. These difficulties start to take their toll on our young couple, but it's after they meet their quirky upstairs neighbor, Victor Velasco, and Corey tries to hook him up with her mother, that the two of them start to see just how different they truly are. So will our young couple see their differences as strengths in their relationship, or will Corey's carefree nature continue to clash with Paul's more straight-laced personality?
That sounds right.
Yep.
I think that was the movie I saw too.
Definitely.
So had you guys seen this movie before? How about you, James?
Have I seen this before? That's a good question because I can't remember if I have. It is the kind of movie that I feel like was on TV a lot or something. Like I've run into it.
Movie.
I've always been aware of it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess, I haven't seen it before. I have some thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Same here. I had not seen it. I knew very little about this movie going in. I will say that of the 3 movies that we decided to watch for our conversation, this was the one that I resonated maybe the least with me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want to flesh this out because I did not dislike this movie. I think there's something dated about some of what happens in the movie. I liked the script kind of moment to moment. It's very fun, and there's a lot of like little things that go back and forth between the characters, and that I liked. And look, Jane Fonda, Robert Redford, 2 beautiful people.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this movie and I'm like, Jane Fonda is the most beautiful a person could be.
She's stunning. And Robert Redford, beautiful man.
Yeah.
The 2 of them together, total eye candy. So there's a part of me that like intrinsically, I'm like, I want to root for these people. There were a couple things that kind of got in the way, I think, of me like fully giving myself over to what was happening. But I'm excited to talk about this because I think there are some like cool and interesting things about this in spite of the reasons why it didn't land fully for me.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, and
Julian.
well, I mean, that's actually, I'm glad you said all of that, Emilio, because we're of very similar minds about this movie. I mean, it's always true with anything that we watch, that good or bad, I'm grateful to have seen it. To engage with a movie, there's no substitute for that. But Barefoot in the Park, this was a movie that, well, I mean, there's been a little talk already of being kind of tangentially aware of it for some time before watching it. But for me, honestly, I really was not hip to this movie until a few months ago. I mean, as a step in the careers of Jane Fonda and Robert Redford, I can immediately appreciate its importance. But this was not, especially with those 2, it was not a movie that was on my radar beforehand. And so it really was in assembling this episode cycle that I became aware of Barefoot in the Park. And also, with the understanding that it was going to be the first movie in this trio of Neil Simon screenplays that we're discussing. I think I was ready for the idea that like, okay, this is the more traditional one of the bunch, or like the one that is maybe maybe it's an uncharitable term, but the least progressive of it. But I think there was, it came up a little bit as we were setting up talking about this movie, that it's like an example of what new Hollywood would leave behind. Actually, Emilio, you and I were talking off mics, I think last week, about release dates, and that this movie comes out kind of early in 1967, and that Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate come out a few months later. So in that 1 year, you feel the sea change.
Yeah, definitely. This movie came out in the spring. 4 months later, at the start of fall, you get Bonnie and Clyde. At the very end of that year, you get The Graduate. And so, yeah, it really does feel like a movie that just kind of snuck in there. It's not like it doesn't belong, but it's just an interesting movie to put alongside those other ones, I think.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's at a very transitionary point in that time of Hollywood.
Certainly.
So,
Yeah.
that is an interesting mix. I mean, so I've said, I said when we introduced this at the end of last week's episode, this is one of my mom's all-time favorite movies. And it's okay that you guys don't love this movie. That's fine. I like this movie a lot, but I think a lot of it is very nostalgic for me. This is a movie that probably saw for the first time when I was a teen, and I've seen a few times since. I rewatched about a year ago. I rewatched again, a few days ago, and I have a lot of fun with this. I can recognize that it has, I think, kind of an interesting story structure that we'll kind of get into, is that it feels like a play.
Yes.
I think.
Definitely
It
feels like a
certainly
play.
does.
And sometimes I can butt up against movies that are adaptations of plays that just feel like plays. The Whale being, an example. There are many things I don't like about that movie. That's only one of them. But I really like Barefoot in the Park personally, and I've seen it a lot in my life. I asked my mom, well, Mom, what do you love so much about this movie? She loves the character actors in this. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of do too.
Yeah.
The character actors are some of the strongest things in this.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like that initial scene when Corey is first in the apartment and the phone delivery guy comes up, Harry Pepper, who is played by Herb Edelman, and then you have the really old delivery man who's practically dying, climbing up 5 flights of stairs plus a stoop, played by James Stone. So she loves scenes like that in this movie. And then I'm like, Charles Boyer's Victor Velasco character is like tailor-made for my dad. Like that is absolutely a my dad kind of character.
I mean, he's kind of a character that really spoke to me too. He's felt like kind of the strongest. I was most interested in this movie when they let him cook.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. That actor, I really like him in Clooney Brown. I don't know if have you seen Clooney Brown?
Haven't.
It's like
No.
a Prince Lubitsch movie from a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it is true. Like the supporting actors are really terrific in this movie. That guy, the phone operator that you're talking about, is in another Neil Simon movie. He's in The Odd Couple. He's he's one of the poker players.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's interesting to hear you describe this movie as this thing that old Hollywood was leaving behind, because it is when the source material debuted on Broadway, it was seen as this huge transitional work from high broad comedy kind of. And I feel like it's really hard to talk about this movie without talking about its stage origins.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This movie was directed by Gene Saks, who was a theater director.
Guy. Yes.
He, frequent collaborator with Neil Simon. He made The Odd Couple movie, which is a movie that I really enjoy that film. But the original play was directed by Mike Nichols.
Yep.
And Mike Nichols injected this kind of more naturalistic performance style to the play, which this was also Neil Simon's first big hit.
Yeah.
And he came from, Your Show of Shows, and was one of these big wisecracking one-liner comedy writers
that was where he
from
came
that
up.
era. Yeah, that's where he came up. And you'd think that a play like this would be directed with people sitting, standing center stage, facing each other, delivering their wisecracks. And Mike Nichols injected this kind of thing where they're going to be doing something else while they're talking with each other. Let's say the Jane Fonda character is unpacking boxes while while the Robert Redford character is tying his tie or sort of flattening it with a book or something.
Oh, interesting.
It was just constantly full of motion, that again felt very lived in rather than this kind of playing to the backseats joke delivery machine.
Yeah, it's this slice of life. You're just like hanging out with these characters kind of play and thus movie as well, which, is a real contrast to things that were on Broadway before that point.
Right. But and all of that makes it to the screen. But for some reason in this movie, it's missing that something where when we watch it now, it feels stale.
I'm wondering where the intermission was.
Was there
on
an
stage.
intermission?
I don't know if there was an intermission on stage.
It has to be when they go out to dinner.
But I
that's what I
feel
thought.
like that's one thing that rewatching it, I was like, this movie loses a little bit of steam as it goes. And I think it's maybe because on stage, I imagine it had an intermission that gives everybody a break, gives you time to recharge, and now you're back for more. And you can't do that in film. And so you have to, I think, figure out a different way to re-energize your audience. And I don't know that the film adaptation is totally successful with that.
Yeah.
I also was interested in engaging with this movie. Maybe this was not the way to do it, but I was trying to think how an audience in 1963, when it was a huge hit, what kinds of people would be there. And to me, this feels like something couples would go see.
Absolutely.
And that was actually one of the things that was tricky about the movie for me is I wanted to kind of give myself over to some of what it was commenting on a little bit when it was
young love,
young
marriage.
Yeah. And now we're married and like what changed now since we're married? And I mean, I was also a newlywed and house poor at the same time. And so there was a part of me that was like interested in seeing if this movie kind of got to me by going somewhere relatable with the characters. I did not feel really connected to, I think, the plight of these characters.
Well, their relationship is presented in an interesting way because you know nothing about their background as a couple, and it almost feels like these people are strangers. Like it feels like these people don't really know each other at all.
Yeah.
Which is interesting and maybe can make it difficult to pull for their relationship because you are just kind of like, you're getting to know them a little bit separately, mostly Corey. And you're like, okay, but what do you like about each other other than like the sex is good?
But this is kind of the Neil Simon problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Neil Simon. Okay. I mean, like, where are we at with Neil Simon? Like, could we actually go around the table? When did you first hear about Neil Simon? Like, what was... Because I have like a very specific impression of Neil Simon when growing up versus how I feel about him now.
For me, it was definitely like watching this movie for the first time when I was, I don't know, between 13 and 16 somewhere, just because so many of his movies are like Neil Simon's Barefoot in the Park, like Neil Simon's The Heartbreak Kid. And that's interesting. You don't see that a whole lot, at least not anymore. So that was definitely
He was always this kind of name above the title kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like when growing up, I also had this impression of him as like, that's the signal of like an elevated comedy, very urbane, sophisticated,
New York kind of set.
Thing.
And also as like a writer that he has the cachet. Like the only other screenwriter I can think of where it's like the name goes with the title is Paddy Chayefsky.
Sure.
Or it's like Network by Paddy Chayefsky, and then you see directed by Sidney Lumet.
Right. But then the thing about Neil Simon is that like as I've grown older and sort of like taken another look at some of these works, I mean, the rat-a-tat-tat, lines of wisecracks and one-liners, it all reads as very tinny and false to me. All the characters seem to talk the same. And the characterizations themselves are often very one-dimensional. And like what you're saying about this too, it's just kind of like a contrived sort of comic setup between two people that don't seem to know or understand each other. That comes at a certain time in the 60s and 70s when I think that a lot of Jewish writers in particular were kind of like in this transitionary moment where putting ethnic identity at the forefront of the work was just starting to come into vogue, especially as, in terms of movies and stuff like that, the production code was dwindling,
Right.
fading away and everything. There's something about this movie that has like a uniquely very specific Jewish rhythm to it. But then you see these actors that are as blonde and blue-eyed, as beautiful as possible, sort of like, delivering these lines. And there's just a mismatch there going on there that you don't know these people, because it's this weird thing of trying to make something very specific as the Jewish experience try and also be like the broader, grander human experience, I guess, or something.
Yeah, my partner pointed that out
lost.
also. It's like, I forget what word Robert Redford says, but he says something along the lines of, I feel like a schmuck or something like that.
I wrote it down.
What was it?
And thus it was written, some shall die by pestilence, some by the plague, and one poor schnook is going to get it from a hole in the ceiling.
That was
Oh,
it. And
got
Dougie was like, that sounds so weird coming out of Robert
Coming
Redford.
out of Robert Redford. And the ironic thing, too, is that, like, again, this was a major hit at the time. Robert Redford was in the original stage production. This was his big break.
Yeah.
I mean, he was about to move to Utah and become a painter. Or, that's what he always wanted to do.
But he originates the role on Broadway.
Yeah.
He originates the role on Broadway, and it was a huge hit. And also who originated her role on Broadway was the mother.
Yes.
What's her name?
Mildred Natwick is the
Yes.
actor.
Yes.
Ethel's the character, and
she's
worth
the
noting,
one,
she's what qualifies this as an Oscar-worthy rom-com. Because she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, she's funny.
Yeah,
she is funny.
yeah, but it's and also I think this is the first Robert Redford movie we're discussing on the podcast.
I think you're
I
correct.
think
about
so
that.
too.
R.I.P. About 6 months before we're recording this, he passed away.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also this is right before Robert Redford becomes a Western icon.
Well, yeah, Butch Cassidy is really what kind of like launches him into mega stardom.
Right.
And this is an interesting time for Jane Fonda too.
This is right before Barbarella.
Yeah.
Right before Barbarella, but she is still sort of like between.
Like, is it going to happen or not?
Is she a sex symbol? Is she a movie star? Is she a theater actress or something? This was also around the time that like a Playboy thing where they printed photos of her on set against her consent. I think there was a lawsuit involved. Like, so there was this whole thing where she wasn't, is she going to be a movie star? I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of getting her footing.
I felt consistently while watching Barefoot in the Park that her acting in the movie is very good, but she sometimes bumps up against dialogue, some lines written for her that feel like cookie cutter for the character. I think I won't point them out just yet, but there were 2 scenes in the movie that felt less like that to me that I'll shout out in due time. But I like, James, that you said, this movie has a Jewish rhythm to it. As someone who is Jewish, I can feel that when I watch a movie. And that's why I think like all Coen Brothers movies, even the ones that aren't specifically about Judaism, have a Jewish rhythm to me. Yeah, like even Raising Arizona, not one Jewish character to be found. I feel it. Yeah. And maybe like Preston Sturges, who is not Jewish, but was the big influence on the Coen Brothers. Maybe there's something about that in his films too. Different conversation.
You gotta watch some Ernst Lubitsch movies.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm sold. But yeah, Barefoot in the Park. Yeah, that line about the schnook, maybe subconsciously, that's part of why I wrote it down. I couldn't help but put on a little affectation more to like a stereotypical Jewish American accent when reading that line just a few minutes ago. And going back more to like the characters, the way they're portrayed, like watching this the first time, I was kind of wondering if what I was in for was like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead type of story, where it's like taking 2 stock characters and showing you what they do when you're not watching normally.
Yeah.
I wondered if that was the case, but as the movie went on, I was just kind of like, oh, this is getting a little too into it for it to be like that kind of parody.
It's funny. It feels like it is almost that, but they just pick one of those to kind of live in. It does feel like the whole plot, which I have to use very loosely, but the whole story with the upstairs neighbor, feels like it could be condensed into a vignette of like 15 minutes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But it's stretched out through 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah.
Right?
They got to take a this Staten Island ferry and
Yeah.
all kinds of other things.
Right.
It
Yeah.
gets really drawn out. Yes. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you guys, because of the films we're discussing tonight, we said this is the only one that originates on stage, with Neil Simon both writing the original play and adapting it for the screen. And we're already kind of getting into this, but are there aspects of this film, and maybe in particular its story structure, that you find kind of theatrical, particularly compared to the films we're going to discuss later?
Yeah.
I think the limitation of the setting, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
The first half of this movie, I could very easily see it being a play.
It's all in the apartment.
It's all in the apartment. And even many of the later scenes, it's easy to imagine, well, you don't have to make very many sets to do all this.
Yeah.
That, and the other thing that stood out to me was the time span of it. The fact that, they're married 6 days, and it's ostensibly this takes place in under a week's time.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, you just feel like the ups and downs of this are almost too many to have in that real time span. But then I remember that, we discussed West Side Story, both film versions last year, and that, as many things happen in that movie, rewatching it, I was reminded, that's just 2 days. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Much like Romeo and Juliet.
Exactly.
Oh, which I wouldn't have known because I've never read it or seen it, which is, it's almost like what Titanic is to me in movies, Romeo and Juliet is in theater.
And movies.
And movies,
And
yes.
movies, yes.
But those elements of Barefoot in the Park felt the most specifically theatrical to me. And I think that when you have that understanding, then it it can enhance your experience of the story. But I also think that, even in film, we don't always expect the realism of the time elapsed has to feel like it would in real life.
Yeah, you use the word realism here. It's interesting because I was trying to think to myself, I feel like I would have enjoyed Barefoot in the Park a little more on stage, like in a theater production, just because, and maybe this is me, and maybe this is not something that I should be imprinting on a film like this, but there is a sense, I think, of realism that this movie is trying to capture. I don't really see it as like this full-on madcap parody of newlywed life. Is trying to really ground you in something familiar. A lot of the intensity, the kind of manic jumps that Corey makes, and then the way it has to get undercut so much by the Robert Redford character. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name.
Paul.
Paul, thank you. I feel like would work better if you were actually in like a black box.
Yeah.
And what you're watching feels more like a dream, kind of the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is so intimate.
Yeah.
Like the whole setup
Exactly,
is just
yes.
like one giant, fight between these two or disagreement.
Right.
That turns into a fight in the second act or whatever.
Yeah.
But like it's the intimacy that I think people are responding to.
I felt the same. Yeah.
Yeah. They're, I would recommend reading the Mike Nichols biography. It's very good by Mark Harris. And in rehearsals, I remember I kind of looked back at this again, in preparation for this episode. And
we love how prepared you are, man.
Thanks. But Mike Nichols was directing the actors in rehearsal, and to a point where he told them, I don't want you to treat this like comedy. I want you to treat this like it's King Lear or something. Take everything as seriously as possible. And Neil Simon, one day during rehearsal was like, I feel like we should, in the middle of like a very heated exchange between Redford and I forgot her name, Elizabeth Ashley. Ashley, yeah. They had a particularly heated moment. And even Neil Simon, the playwright, was like, I feel like I shouldn't be watching this. I feel like a voyeur right now.
Yeah.
And I think that the entire setup invites that kind of,
definitely,
like we're prying, in
we're
this,
behind
literally
closed
like a
doors,
fly on the
closed
wall.
doors.
Yeah. Which you brought up too, Julian. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And just like experiencing this, this telling of this story, there are a few elements of it, for all of the things you can call dated in it. There are some things in it that genuinely feel evergreen to me. That sense, not even just for a married couple, but as a young person moving into a new apartment in New York City, that sense that the reality of the space is not what you thought it would be.
It's like you tore the apartment on the 3rd floor, but yours is on the 5th. Like
Right.
things
Yes.
like that. Like the radiator, like, oh, well, all your plumbing works backwards. I have friends' apartments like that. That's like, no, their hot knob makes cold water and their cold knob makes hot water. And if you don't know that, then you're washing your hands with cold water every time you go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Although it's made a big gag in this movie. I wonder how they did this on stage, but that going up the 5 flights of stairs is, it drains everyone who goes through it. And 5 flights, that's a lot. But as someone who has lived in New York City walk-up apartment buildings pretty much my entire life, I see that and I'm like, piece of cake, big deal.
But here's the thing, like that gag is from the stage production.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like they do that on stage. But when you see in the movie, when you see the stairs, it kind of deflates the whole thing.
It's the same flight over and over again.
It's just like, we get it, after a certain point. But like it's also on stage, it's like every entrance is just like one-upping each other.
Yeah.
So like when you're in live,
that's a
in
good
present,
point,
you kind of want to see the actors. It's like, oh, what's the next? How's
how
mom going to react?
How winded is he?
How winded is
Delivery
Lord
guy,
and Taylor's
the
delivery
guy.
guy?
Yeah.
No, but you're right though, because the stairs do that thing where they go down and then you actually get to walk for a while on
like a
flat,
landing.
a landing. It's not like 5 continuous flights or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're imagining it, for the stage production, it's great. You also just kind of you're rooting for the actors, to go big in their entrance there.
And then they're describing all the different neighbors that they have, some of which have descriptions that did not age all that well.
Definitely.
That's true.
Yeah.
But then there's like the guy with the tuna fish or whatever. And I'm like, I want to know about the guy with the tuna. I want to go hang out with the guy with the tuna fish. But I'm just like, I do think that there is an opportunity to dive into the other people that live in this building. Like, I understand the argument for kind of keeping them almost ghostly, like they're just shadows of they don't even really exist. I understand that argument, but I think it would have actually been fun to explore other people and not just the guy that lives in the attic.
And I think that's the kind of thing that you develop for a film.
Yeah.
In a way that maybe on stage, it's nice that you're not overwhelmed with too many people.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, this idea of like getting to see the colorful side characters of New York City, if Joan Micklin Silver had adapted this, there would be it would be a totally different attitude in terms of like actually setting this young couple in the city and like, the fear of like Paul, is he becoming a stuffed shirt, like in the midst of like such a colorful and vibrant city. And then there's this yuppie over here, then it has a point of view. Something's going on.
You know who else I think
context
would like weirdly do a good job with that kind of things? Wes Anderson.
Sure.
You think of like Royal Tenenbaums era Wes Anderson, that's a movie that has, there's a family at the core of it, but there's all these colorful characters throughout.
Yeah.
And it's set in New York. Well, do they never define
New York
it?
adjacent.
It's a New Yorkish city that it's in.
I think it's supposed to be like
I think
Upper West Side.
I think they never state it, but
I think it's like a fantastical city that is so obviously New York. Right. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, the way that in The Dark Knight, Gotham is so obviously Chicago.
Yes.
Right, but then in Dark Knight Rises, it's New York.
Yeah. Right.
You can't seem to figure that one out.
But also, like, in describing all the colorful characters of this building, I thought of that. Well, it's like that one shot, that one set in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou where you see the whole boat.
Yeah.
And like the characters are running through it. And I thought like Wes Anderson would make the set for this whole building and show you all the characters.
There's literally one shot in this movie that does that though.
Yeah.
Like when it goes up from one flight to another.
Oh yeah.
Like Jane Fonda and Velasco.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. They run up, like after dinner, they're like racing or something. And you see the camera do that Wes Anderson thing of like, from one floor to the other,
Well, it's funny.
The one bit of visual dynamism.
I think the exterior that they use, I looked it up on Google Street View and it looks the same, except for it's not a 5-story building. It's like a 3.5-story building. So that really limits you for what you can show from the outside because they make such a big deal about how tall this building is. And it's like 3 stories.
That's
Yeah.
My mom wanted me to talk about the fact that I lived in an apartment that she's always like, it's like the Barefoot in the Park apartment. But of course, many of us in New York have lived in apartments like this. But the weird thing about this apartment, other than the fact that it was not in New York, it was not that it was on a really high floor. It's that once you went up several flights of stairs, you went out onto the roof. Like you opened a door and you're now outside with like an open sky. But the buildings on either side are still like raised up slightly higher.
That's cool.
And you have to like walk across this like wooden landing to my actual apartment.
Oh wow.
But then once like the door that you would have to walk through to go out onto the roof like got jammed in some way, and I got like locked on my roof.
Oh no.
Like / in my apartment. But anyway, I had to like call my dad and be like, can you help me pick a lock?
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm locked on my roof.
I mean, you really sound like you were in the Victor Velasco.
Yeah, that's
It's probably closer to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of, and where was that?
This was in North Carolina.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I lived above a music store.
Well, I mean, if
Okay.
you had to call your dad for help, that set it in location.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Victor Velasco, we've said a little bit about him, but what a character.
Yeah.
He's very fun. I feel like the movie, like I said before, it really hums when he's dragging them along, and
He's a real goofball.
Part of the whole gag is just that like he's like one of the only really ethnicized characters in the whole movie. And I was wondering
that
like,
really celebrates ethnicity too, like from other countries and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, like, I don't know whether this is like celebratory or problematic or a bit of both. Watching that character, but then I mean, one thing I think you can enjoy pretty freely is just the fact that he's part of this like gourmet Illuminati.
Yes, that's true.
But it's a Greek restaurant, isn't it, that they go to?
But it's
Or,
on the
like-
Wikipedia. It says it's Albanian.
Oh, it's Albanian?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Okay.
But I think they
Yeah.
reference that it's partially Greek food.
It's like a Greek
Okay.
soup or
Yeah.
something? Greek bean soup?
So it's like an Albanian
Yeah.
restaurant, but they have this Greek soup.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
They're
I mean, those are neighboring countries.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say they're
it's
getting from a region of the world.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
funny. Charles Boyer, I don't know if I've ever seen him like as an old man before.
Right, because he
Yeah.
had a long career in the movies, like in the 30s, didn't he?
Yeah, he's in well, Clooney Brown in particular is like he's like a charismatic, romantic lead in that film. He's a charismatic romantic lead in this movie called History is Made at Night.
Okay.
From the 30s and 40s. That's how I've always kind of known him. And then when I watched this movie a couple weeks ago, I was like, what? That's the guy.
That's him. That's
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
then-
he was Cary Grant, like a few, like
Yeah, Love
Yeah.
Affair too is a big one for
Yeah.
him. And then, I mean, Gaslight, although different kind of movie and different
Different kind of
kind
movie.
Oh yeah,
character.
that's true. That's right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so we've talked about this movie a little bit and probably already said a few details that we wanted to shout out, but are there any that any of us want to still put out there?
So the scene I mentioned earlier, a pair of scenes that I thought to me were some of the best rendered in the movie was after Corey and Paul have had their big blowout fight and they go grocery shopping, or they're both separately shopping and run into each other. And then when you see like he's sneezing because he got a cold because he slept under the hole in the skylight and the snow fell. And then Corey just goes, God bless him. That was the beginning of a short segment of the movie where it feels kind of like the dialogue is not as expositional or expository, whatever the correct word is, where, they're just they're saying more like through their words than with their words. And that's right before the scene where the phone installation guy, my favorite character in the movie, by the way, he's coming to reinstall the phone that Paul supposedly murdered the night before. And then Paul and Corey are just exchanging barbs by saying like, is there any beer in the house? That kind of stuff. I mean, if you take them out of the context that they're in, those moments I thought stood the test of time a little better. They're less on the nose and they communicate the characters' emotions and motivations in a way that is direct if you see it, but less direct in what they speak.
Yeah.
In a way that I liked. And also while we're talking about little details, this is a truly little one, but the maid in the Plaza Hotel at the very beginning of the movie, Doris Roberts.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorite character actors of this era in film.
she's in Heartbreak Kid too.
Yeah, we'll come back to her.
Definitely.
We're setting up for that. But yeah, just shout out Doris Roberts.
I just have to say, honestly, I like how horny Corey is in this. I think it's very progressive for this time.
That's true.
And that's something that I like seeing represented in this time period of just kind of unabashedly. She just like wants to have sex with him all the time. And, I appreciate that because I think that, we don't need to get too far into it, but women's sexuality over many years, but definitely during this time period, is not something that we were reckoning with in the same kind of way.
Sure,
and it's not presented in a judgmental way at all.
No,
it's like,
no.
it's just presented as like, oh, that's a fact of life and that's something that connects them. And that's like really the only reason that they make it as far as they do is because they have this sexual chemistry. And I'm glad that they represent this on screen.
And this is a year before Barbarella too, which is also known for having some like progressive portrayals of women's sexuality and stars Jane Fonda.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that movie?
I haven't actually.
But I know about a notable scene from it, but I haven't seen
that. That is a
thing.
wacky film.
Yeah.
I see the side of it where you're like, oh, this is kind of progressive and kind of interesting. And then also just like the director really wanted to show how sexy Jane Fonda
but that's
is.
really also like what Jane Fonda sort of represents in the different stages of sort of like of sexuality through her career as well. She was a sex symbol at this era, and then with Clute, there's like a totally different aspect to depiction of female sexuality on screen. And then, by the time she gets into the 80s with the workout videos, it's like a totally different kind of thing. And I think she's had a very interesting career. Of course, it would come from this start from here, with Barefoot in the Park.
Yeah.
And the image of her in horny as hell in her pajamas or something in the hotel or something.
Yeah.
Trying to do the Cambodian dance.
Fertility dance.
Yeah.
That's true.
Another detail I liked is when Velasco is on the roof. I really like the score in that moment. It feels very Badalamenti to me.
I was going to say that
too. It's like a very bass heavy score. And it's funny because I actually think the score overall is kind of a weak point of this movie because they kind of just reuse the same theme a lot. But that's the one moment that I was like, all right, now we're cooking. There should have been a little more of this.
Yeah. I wanted to just shout out, and we talked about the supporting characters of this film. Mildred Natwick, the mother.
Yeah.
I found to be kind of delightful. And before we got on mics, we were talking about teleplays. And I'm reminded of the fact that the presence of different generations, you see a lot from works around this time, that there's something for everybody. And I was intrigued by how this movie was trying to thread that needle a bit. I don't know if it was always successful. It reminded me of what a lot of things from around that time were interested in doing. Like they're going to want to tell their parents about it, and there should be something in this play or this movie for them too.
I just wish that the mother character was kind of like more of a character. I mean, the actor does what she can with it
yes.
quite well. I think she's very funny in the film.
Yeah.
But like you really don't get quite a sense of their relationship, and you don't really get a sense of
their like chemistry.
There's no
between
cultural
the two of them.
specificity, in any of these characters. And
she's from New Jersey. That's specific.
There's just like that's kind of why. Just again, talking about the sort of ethnic identity of it that Simon was really just starting to develop in his work here. This is a launching pad for that, I feel like. And I wonder if it is the kind of thing where, I don't know. It's a launching pad. What can I say, man?
To transition out of this on the note of ethnic identity, I mean, we've given no lip service yet to Shama, El Kamalma.
Dougie's been singing that around our apartment since we rewatched
this. And I don't know if there's any like linguistic truth to that, but it feels that's what the actual movie plays out on, and maybe that's what we play it out on ourselves before we say, Miami Beach, here we come.
I guess so, yes. All right, we'll shift over now, right? We'll start talking about The Heartbreak Kid.
Yes.
Released in 1972. Yes, as was mentioned before, Neil Simon adapted this from a short story called A Change of Plan, which was written by Bruce J. Friedman. And yes, it stars Charles Grodin, Sybil Shepherd, Jeannie Berlin, Eddie Albert, notably directed by Elaine May. But I think it should be stated here that while several characters in this movie spend plenty of time in hotels, this should not be confused with Heartbreak Hotel. And no, this is not one of the movies that was starring Elvis from back in the day. This is a film from 1988, which was written and directed by Chris Columbus. And this was right before he was minted as a director doing Home Alone a couple of years later. This is a wild movie about a teenager who kidnaps Elvis back in 1972, thinking it's going to cheer his sick mother up. It's very weird.
Does it?
I think it does.
Sounds
All right,
good.
great. Mission accomplished.
By all accounts, so this movie is not very good. So do not confuse it with,
Oh, that's a shame.
with
It
the
sounds
Heartbreak
fun.
Kid.
Yes, and the Heartbreak Kid, though, I mean, it puts it up front in its title that, there is some romantic turmoil in this film. It is not to be confused with a more recent film with a similar trait called Splitsville, which, I think, a few of the movies that we're talking about tonight could potentially be confused with something like that. But Splitsville is a movie that came out just last year, 2025, written and directed by Michelangelo Covino, starring him and Kyle Marvin alongside Dakota Johnson and Adria Arjona. To me, and I think many cinephiles, one of the great unawarded movies of 2025.
It's such a fun movie.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I think it is unfortunate that we're not hearing more talk about it in award season when we're recording this, but I wholeheartedly recommend that movie. It is just that was start to finish one of the funniest movies I've seen in the last year.
Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
And we should say that The Heartbreak Kid is also not to be confused with Heartbreakers, which is a 2001 film directed by David Merkin, starring Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt as a mother-daughter con team.
Yes. Has anybody here seen that movie?
I haven't, but
No.
you're nodding, so I'm thinking you
I have seen that movie and you stole mine.
Oh, no!
I was going to say that.
Apologies.
No, it's okay. It's a pretty good movie.
Pretty good.
It's fun. It's kind of forgettable, but the performances are very fun.
Yeah.
It has a good Gene Hackman's in it.
He's excellent, and so is Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver's
The two
very
of them
fun.
Are really funny in that movie.
Yeah, and Ray Liotta is also very good in that
that's
too.
right, Ray Liotta.
He plays the first guy that they pull their con on.
Yes.
And then, slight spoiler alert, he comes back and figures out their thing.
And he wants in.
He wants in, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
That's a very fun movie.
For what it is, it's actually kind of good.
I might watch this now. This seems like a good time.
It's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah.
You'll have a great time.
Sometimes that's all you want out of a movie.
Exactly. It's a pretty good movie to throw on and just sort of, vibe to. It's funny.
For sure.
Yeah.
The Heartbreak Kid, not to be confused with the Heartbreak Kid remake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller.
Oh, yeah.
With Ben
right?
Stiller.
Directed by
And
the
Directed by
Farrelly
the
brothers.
Farrelly
Yeah.
brothers. One of the worst films I've ever seen in my entire life.
I've never seen it, but I've heard only bad
it's
things.
atrocious.
Truly bad. Well, I mean, we should get into it, but it is the easy way to sort of tell this story.
It is.
And in the most basic and blunt and outright misogynist and misguided.
It's
ways.
shockingly bad.
It's shocking.
Yeah, I actually saw this movie before I saw the original.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm in some ways I'm glad I saw it that way because
The original's hard to find.
Well, the original is very
That's
hard
true.
to find.
Yeah.
Well,
but
it redeemed the original.
exactly.
Yeah,
it made me
sure.
go oh my god, well, and it also made me kind of despise the remake more
Yeah.
because
Oh
I'm
my-
So you're
wow.
how dare you?
How did they fuck this up so bad?
Royally,
Yeah.
just kind of really fumbled the ball in every single possible way.
Yeah.
That's really one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
The other day, somebody was asking me, oh, what are you guys covering next? And oh, well, what movie would you recommend I watch? And because The Heartbreak Kid is my favorite of the movies we're discussing, I was like, you should watch The Heartbreak Kid if you can find it. Do not watch the 2007 remake.
don't.
Please do
Be
not.
very careful
Yeah,
that that's not
PSA.
the one
Yeah.
you put on by accident. And again, I haven't seen it, but there is a reason for that.
Yeah, no, it's, everything you said,
It
James, is
hurts.
Yeah.
It really hurts
Yeah.
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's sad too, because I'm a big admirer of Ben Stiller.
Sure.
And it's if he had been at the helm of a remake of this movie, I probably would be much more open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a strong director, especially in that era. That's his like Tropic Thunder era.
It's right before, yeah.
It's right before.
Yeah.
So he was trying some things.
He had just done Dodgeball too. I mean, he didn't direct that, but as an actor in that, I think like he's like that's a fun movie, but I think like he is really the lightning of that movie. But now we are talking about the OG Heartbreak Kid from 1972. Yeah, I think we've alluded some to what this movie is about, but like, what really is this movie about?
Yeah, good question. Well, it's a whirlwind romance for Lenny and Lila, two young New Yorkers who meet one night at a bar and start a seemingly sweet and assured courtship that rather quickly finds them at the altar exchanging vows. It doesn't take long, though, for Lenny to start having second thoughts about Till Death Do Us Part. Mere days, in fact. The drive down to Miami, Florida, where they plan to spend most of their honeymoon, finds Lenny constantly underwhelmed by and judgmental of Lila's behavior. Any personal quirk of hers feels nauseating. Every personal admission, an overshare. Any small mistake, a catastrophe. And Lenny truly puts Lila out of his mind when he meets Kelly, a striking young blonde college student staying at the same hotel with her family on spring break. Her flirtations with Lenny are casual, mere exercises for Kelly to trade on her looks for attention and flattery. But she has hooked the wrong fish. Lenny loses his mind over her and convinces himself that she is the one that he should be married to. What about Lila, his newlywed? And what about Kelly's parents, specifically her father, who sees right through Lenny and wants him to have nothing to do with his daughter? For better or for worse, there is a determination that grows in Lenny to wed Kelly, and he will have to confront these and other factors if he is to make this desired outcome a reality.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the Heartbreak Kid in a nutshell.
Here we go. I'd love to put the ball in your court, James. What is this movie to you?
The Heartbreak Kid is a masterpiece.
That is true.
This is one of
Facts.
the greatest movies of all time.
He's right.
We're talking Letterboxd top 4. This is in my Letterboxd top 4.
Okay.
Currently sitting at number 2.
Oh, wow.
This
All
is
right.
an incredible movie. I can't believe it. I love it. Not exactly a romantic comedy, though.
We were like, we want to talk Neil Simon. We have to talk The Heartbreak Kid. It's such a great movie.
Oscar nominated.
Yes, Oscar nominated.
Yes,
also.
the
deservingly.
best Neil Simon movie, too.
Yeah.
But is really playing on the tropes of romantic comedy.
Yes.
I think like if you remove a lot of what you feel when you watch this movie, it
Right.
kind of is a romantic comedy. I mean, like if you see the outcome of the film, isn't that the plot of so many romantic comedies?
Mm-hmm.
A guy meets a girl
under trying
under
circumstances.
a trying circumstance and puts his mind to it that he is going to get her at any cost, and then does.
Yeah.
And then they get married.
And then they get married.
And they live happily ever after.
It's open-ended, but it's up for the
It's a little
audience to
open-ended.
see how they want to feel about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, I really firmly believe that this is a masterpiece. One of only the 4 films that Elaine May directed, all of them masterpieces.
Yes.
And I feel like I call this the best Neil Simon movie, but it is an instance where it feels so much of the power of this movie is this kind of mutiny feeling of a director kind of calling bullshit on a script.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and just kind of having her own interpretation of it.
Mhm.
It's a little bit like what you described with Mike Nichols in Barefoot in the Park.
A
That
little
there is this other energy that's coming in to
Yeah.
sort of balance maybe what might have been there on the page.
Nichols, you know, and that was his first, big Broadway show. I don't know if it was his first play. I don't think it was his first play, but it was like an early attempt at wanting to try something new to sort of like something that a very familiar sort of model, the Neil Simon model.
Mike Nichols and Elaine May.
Yeah,
You
they
know.
are they are soulmates. I
Yeah.
mean, their lives are forever sort of like tied to one another.
Yeah.
You can't really talk about one without the other and their effect on each other. They started out together as Nichols and May, an improv comedy group, pioneering improv comedy group, doing sketches in the 50s and 60s, performing live. And then they both broke off with an interest in directing.
Yeah.
And Nichols had a very prolific, long film directing career, while Elaine May directed 4 films, every single one of them a struggle, and wrote a number of movies, oftentimes as a script doctor, very often uncredited. They eventually came back together in the 90s
with The Birdcage,
which
is a great film.
Primary Colors isn't,
and Primary Colors
yeah.
is the next one, which I think she was nominated for an Oscar for. Her screenplay was
so,
nominated for an Oscar. But she had a hand in all, she did a once-over of every single one of his screenplays, for every one of his films, because they were always tied together in some way. Now, how much her influence based on the Mark Harris book, again, about Mike Nichols, they really came together on this film called Wolf with Jack Nicholson.
Oh, that's a wild
She
movie,
did like
man.
a big touch-up on that, a punch-up on that film.
Okay.
And they loved working with each other again so much that he was just like, why don't you, I'm thinking about doing The Birdcage. Well, just stick around and write the screenplay of The Birdcage or something.
Okay.
And then The Birdcage, one of the best comedies of the 90s.
it's so funny.
Masterpiece.
Yeah.
But regardless of that,
Yeah.
the thing, when you think of Neil Simon's dialogue and his characterizations, it's very one-dimensional and very sort of sitcom-y, rat-a-tat-tat. Elaine May leans very hard into realism and makes the most discomforting cringe comedy out of something that, is supposed to go down light, basically. As far as Neil Simon's, rhythms, she really sort of indulges in silences, and she sucks the air out of punchlines, that's so... And
in a way that makes it so much more funny.
Yeah, it
so
really
much
does.
more funny.
And
then-
memorable.
And
Yeah.
memorable.
Yeah.
And just kind of the wisecracks sometimes come across as attacks,
Yeah.
and then on top of it, this is not a heroic figure at the center of this movie.
No, he sucks.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Which it would be so easy to play this movie as straight as possible with this man that is kind of
He's
I
trapped.
made the wrong choice, and I got to find a better girlfriend.
Wife.
I got to find a better wife.
But he's a maniac. She's able to present him as a maniac because she sees, as you said, she sees through the bullshit.
What's
Yeah.
funny about it too is the point of view of the movie is so centered on him and his perspective, but there's a distance there.
Yeah.
There is.
That always acknowledging the critique.
Yeah.
That we are here to also sort of analyze and criticize this kind of egotist behavior,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And the other easy thing that she avoids doing is making Lila, the first wife, stupid
So
and monstrous.
this is one of the things that I think is really endearing. I mean, it
You
was her
care
daughter,
about Jeannie Berlin.
but you
Yeah.
care about her, and she's never a caricature. It's one of the things that, as we said before, this is the last time I'm going to bring up the remake. The remake makes this character a caricature. Almost because of it, you're like, well, maybe this shitty guy should have the outcome he wants.
Yeah, I know. It's
And-
fucking bullshit.
I know.
The remake is terrible.
Yes,
Madeline Ackerman is an idiot, and
Yeah.
just kind of really loud
Yeah.
mouth and everything.
Right. But no, but this the depiction of Lila in this, I this time around, I was really watching because I'm like, how drawn am I to her outcome? How badly do I want a good thing for her out of this? And it's one of the driving factors for the whole hour of this movie is you're and it's really interesting because this movie and Barefoot in the Park, they have some really odd similarities where it's they're
Here
both
are these
about
newlyweds, they've just gotten married, and they're at least one of them is recognizing that something is awry.
something's awry and whatnot.
Also, they both have hasty singing in them.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, you have to get to it after a little while in Barefoot in the Park, but it's right there at the beginning in
Yes.
the Heartbreak Kid. Also with that lounge singer who's just going da 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 da
This is-
da
I
da.
thought he was
one
like
of
a
my
magician.
details.
Or
Yeah.
That was one of my details. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna come back to that. I
He's
want to
so
bring
talented.
that up.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the other thing about this movie. I mean, again, that mutiny aspect, it almost feels like The Shining or something, where it's just the director is so opposite
like,
the
I'm gonna
intentions
do
of
what
the
I
original
want,
writer.
and-
I'm just going to
yeah,
do what I
yeah.
want, because like Neil Simon was not like a particular, he was not that satisfied with this movie.
Mhm.
And in particular, he thought that this character, played by Jeannie Berlin, Lila, should have been played by Diane Keaton.
Mm.
Like he was really pushing for someone more attractive.
Even though I think Jeannie Berlin looks great. in the
Yeah,
movie.
she looks great.
I think she looks great too.
And it's really fun. She behaves exactly like Elaine May.
You're just watching the movie, you can feel that this is a mother directing her own daughter.
I was feeling that a lot.
Like the
There's
scene,
a lot of care. Yeah.
the scene where it really, I mean, like, yeah, there's care throughout the movie, but the scene where it really stood out to me was kind of a comical scene pretty early on, where they're getting brunch together and she has the egg salad
This
on
is
her face.
exactly
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of too.
Yeah,
sure.
and
Yeah.
when she, like first, like the way that she's ordering double egg salad on toast and double chocolate shake. I mean, it's like the anti Sally Albright.
Yes.
Where it's like Sally and When Harry Met Sally is so known for her meticulous orders, but Lila in The Heartbreak Kid is taking so much time on a pretty straightforward order. But then also like later on in that scene when she has like the literal egg on her face.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And still carrying on the conversation. I mean, I just recently watched A New Leaf for the first time too, and that feels
Awesome.
Another masterpiece.
another masterpiece. Yes,
very
it
good
also
movie.
feels like very much like a gag that would be in that movie, and that
Yeah.
was the moment that really felt
Totally.
like you can feel Elaine May directing her daughter.
Yeah,
there.
I feel like
Yeah.
she's smiling through that whole moment.
Yeah.
It's like there's no part of you that is actually looking at her and judging her the way that
he is.
is.
Yeah.
This is a perfectly normal person
Yeah.
that is just in love.
I think that exactly what you're talking about, Julian. I don't think anyone else could have played this role, because I think that the fact that they have the mother-daughter thing makes Jeannie Berlin feel safe to be like kind of gross. Like, I think this is a scene where it is like kind of gross, like the egg all over her face, it's like spilling out of her mouth. But because of the way that Elaine May directs her is what you're pointing out, Emilio. You never are like, ugh, disgusting. This woman is gross. It's like she's able to lean into these like kind of gross and like slightly annoying aspects in a way that you still make her lovable.
Yes.
And I think that maybe a different actor that Elaine May doesn't have the same relationship with maybe wouldn't have been able to feel the same safety to just kind of let go and like be a little gross and a little annoying, but like still lovable.
Yeah. I also, the moment that jumped out to me where I'm like, whoa, man, I'm like really feeling it for this poor lady, is when Lenny comes back and he basically accuses her of, like, he's like, I can't believe you think I'm lying.
This is the part where I'm like, he's a maniac.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a crazy person from Go.
Yeah. but that's the moment where I'm like,
You're like, he's
it really,
evil.
It really comes together where you're like, in that moment, I despise him as much as I'm going to despise him in the
Yeah.
movie. But I'm also on the other side of the coin here. I like want so much for Lila to like end up with somebody that's not going to do that. to her,
Yeah.
Exactly.
you know?
She deserves
Yeah.
so much better. And this is what gaslighting
Yeah.
is.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, perhaps that is an overused word, but this scene
No,
is
that-
a perfect
So
example.
That's
one
the one,
interesting factoid about this movie is that Elaine May, as a director, was very prone to improvisation in her films, right?
Makes
In
sense.
all of her films.
Yeah.
However, Neil Simon was not a big fan of that idea. So he had it written into his contract that not a word was allowed to be changed in this movie. So there is no improvised dialogue in this movie.
Oh,
except
interesting.
for two scenes, basically.
Okay.
When they're singing in the car,
Yeah.
Okay.
on their way to Miami, and then at the very end during the wedding,
The second
in
wedding.
Minnesota.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can spoil the movie, I guess.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. But like in Minnesota, that's all improvised. So she had to find different ways to sort of improvise without improvising words. And she does it all in the blocking,
Mm.
and these scenes when he's lying to her, it is
She's on
chilling,
the move constantly.
Yeah.
but he's locking eyes
Yeah.
with her. He never
Yeah.
breaks eye contact
It's-
with her. He's doing all these things,
Yeah, he's
putting
like
his
tying
shirt on,
his tie, but just like unblinking.
grabs his jacket from the closet.
That like
It's scary.
yeah. Well, it's like Charles Grodin in this movie. I mean, he does such a good job at playing a liar, But like like all of that physical stuff that he does, like particularly the scene where he's like rushing to brush his teeth once he realizes he has an opportunity with Kelly later on in the movie, made me think a lot of Matthew Broderick in Election.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Where
yeah,
there's
there's
a similar
definitely.
sense of incentive with that character, but also someone who is like pretty blank expression for a lot of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe appears on the surface to be kind of a decent guy, but like
there's
because
something brewing under
you
there.
know just as the viewer that he's a scumbag.
Well, yeah, this movie, like the way Elaine May interprets it, is a guy that is digging a hole. You know,
Yeah.
basically just digging
Totally.
his hole deeper and deeper, digging his own grave. The Safdie brothers have cited it as a big influence on things like Uncut Gems. And this
Yeah.
feels very much like that kind of central character of just a despicable person with determination to and an objective, you know, and you're weirdly, it's not that you're rooting for him, but you want to see
You just
how
wanna see it
far
through.
he goes.
Yeah.
see
And
it
to
through.
Emilio's point, you want Lila to be free.
Yeah, no, you very much do. Yeah,
Well, bearing in mind too that Lila, you know, for the heartbreak that she goes, that she is very young, like
She's like not even 22.
yeah, like
Right.
about the same age that Jeannie Berlin would have been at the time of making this,
Right.
and that yes, this is terrible, but she has her whole life ahead of her.
Yeah.
That scene when with the pecan pie,
yeah.
Yeah.
an excruciating
Oh,
long.
it's so.
you
It's
know,
10
awful.
minutes, yeah.
It's 10 minutes. Unbelievable. And then at the end, when she breaks down into tears and is wailing, and then Elaine May holds on her, quietly accepting this is probably the best thing that could happen right now. When she's like crying, all the snot, and then she's breathing, and then there's quiet acceptance that I need to get, this is correct. I need to
Yeah.
get as far away from this man as possible.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
got this big emotional musical swell that cuts to Greyhound.
Greyhound.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm headed back home. Fuck
Yeah.
this. You know,
Yeah.
that's like an unbelievable performance moment that, you know,
Yeah.
is all just like, it all comes from Jeannie Berlin.
It's that thing. It's a slow progression where she's not in the know at all at the beginning of that scene and has to take such a journey,
Yeah.
you know, to get towards the end of it. And when she does start losing, she's like, I don't know if I want to be here. He's like holding her, like is not letting her go, trying to like keep her in the seat.
Because
It's
in some ways it feels like he's trying to like
curate the moment.
curate the moment and both like pretend comfort.
Yes.
Like it's like he's
Yeah.
manufacturing this fake comfort because he knows that he's doing something kind of shitty, but he doesn't have any emotional attachment to it anymore.
There's so much shame, too.
Yeah.
So much self-hatred. Like everyone watching him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all about like it doesn't have to have anything to do with her feelings.
There's
It's
such-
like how he's being represented to others.
Exactly how how he's being watched. Like at one point he says like we're gonna have a quick divorce with he says something like a sizable, you know, settlement or something. And when he says that, he says it to the room.
Yes.
And even like
Right.
she's
Yeah.
begging him like give me a quarter so I can go to the ladies' room because I'm going to vomit.
Yeah.
And he's just talking about the settlement. Like she might as well not even be there.
Yeah.
I
That is
wondered
so
if she was
crazy.
actually going to vomit on camera, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, you can be thankful that she didn't, but I would thought like, oh, is Elaine May going to go there?
Mhm.
And yeah, you know, like I wouldn't have put it past her if it was in the script.
Yeah.
But I thought too, well, to a point you mentioned earlier, James, about like the incredibly drawn out nature of that scene compared to the very quick cut that ends it. I like should be stated, Elaine May is a singular figure, but if there's any other director who her style reminds me of the same time, it's Hal Ashby.
I was just going to
Yeah.
bring that up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like because there's a similar sense of rhythm in his movies where it's like incredibly long conversational scenes that can be ended with the snappiest cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also this sense, well, I mean, like you were bringing up Mark Harris earlier, and that when we did our episode about Shampoo, also directed by Hal Ashby, that there's something Mark Harris says on one of the bonus features on the Criterion disc of that about how to him, like the directorial trademark of Hal Ashby is in the background. You have to listen to the background of his scenes. And I think, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly how he meant it, but like really listen and you hear all of the like a room tone and like the genuine noise of the room. And like that scene, that long breakup scene in the restaurant is where I really felt like the presence of the background is equal to the action that's in the foreground.
Yeah, you know, like Elaine May also, it's interesting that you mentioned her editing because I think she's an incredible editor.
Mm-hmm.
There are some scenes that are extremely long takes, like the scene where he's like laying all his cards on the table.
We got to talk about that.
Which is one of the greatest sequences I've ever seen in a movie ever.
Same
but
here. Worth the price of admission on this
movie. Her use of L cuts, which are just very jarring.
Mm-hmm.
There is a hilarious moment in this movie when Lenny is talking to Kelly at a bar, talking about, like maybe we'll meet in the morning at my spot. Just stay off my spot or something. And then she says, thanks for the nut.
Yeah.
And then Grodin is just, it holds on Grodin for a long time.
The pullback.
And then you hear on the soundtrack, did you meet anybody at the bar? And then it cuts to him waking up basically at the front door of the hotel room. It zooms out.
This is one of the moments that sticks with me about
this is more like dream logic propulsion rather than, just like a simple punchline or something. But it comes right after, this ridiculous like Neil Simon punchline of like, thanks for the nut,
Right.
But like the way that it's handled here, it's just like, that is the kind of like also filmmaking that you see in like Tim Robinson's doing shit like that now, where it's just kind of like this sudden like break from reality, like back to reality kind of
There's a great moment in Blood Simple when like Frances McDormand's character in that movie has just like heard some shocking news, and then like you see her in one room and then you see her falling on a pillow in a very similar manner. It's like, oh wait, two different spaces were just made one.
There's also like there's also to talk again about like her sense of perspective and point of view. Back to like that egg salad diner scene. I think it's the scene right before when she wakes up in the hotel.
Oh yeah, he's just staring at her like
he's just
moving back and forth in the bed.
She is waking
that scene
up.
Is like depressing to me.
But it is her frame.
Yeah,
she is at the center of the frame. Berlin is at the center of the frame, and Grodin is out of focus in the background, just like staring at her. But it's all him.
Yes,
we are. This is like something out of Tar or something, where you're just like this arm's length, what do you call it? Third person limited or something, where you're kind of with this character, but at the same time you're at arm's length with far enough from, so that you can judge them basically. But like, I love her sense of perspective here. There's another scene later on when she's like, when Grodin is entering the bar, with the family, and this nightclub singer or something, and like Sybil Shepherd and her family are at the front of the frame, and Grodin is entering in the back of the frame, and all the dialogue is from his perspective, but they are like chattering right in the foreground. We should be hearing them.
Well, to the point you brought up about Hashby and what's happening in the background.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're
new
like
Hollywood
kindred spirits here. It is so new Hollywood and cutting edge.
Yeah.
From an editorial
Nice one. Well, also, I mean, I have to point out that earlier, Madeline, you were talking about how Grodin's character Lenny manufactures what's going on in that restaurant and just manufacture. I like that.
I wanted to. You mentioned like the dream logic thing. That nightclub performer. I don't think this is really going on, but I like this movie so much. When that moment happens, it is bizarro to me that is what is being done on stage.
Yeah.
It sounds like a joke.
Because it looks like he's like a magician just like singing along with himself.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I had a moment this time where I was like, is this one of those things where we're getting the subjective perspective from the dad? Like so distracted by what is happening just to his left and basically this threat to his daughter and by extension, himself, that what we're watching and what we're experiencing is really coming from the filter of he's not really paying attention. This is what it sounds like to him.
Like
I'm reaching here
symbols.
a little bit, but
I buy it.
But I'm ready to go there.
I like this take.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of cringe comedy, that like the cadence of that performer there makes me think a lot of this great scene of embarrassment from The British Office, where like Ricky Gervais's character David Brent is like a bunch of characters are kind of like cheering him on to dance at some office party. They're just got like this rhythm like da 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 da, and then he actually does it. And he's like da, 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 and he's just like as soon as he starts dancing, all the encouragement drifts away.
Yeah, it goes away. They're like, maybe we don't want this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like British humor has there's like a a continuum of cringe humor in like the broader span of British humor, but I think it says something that Elaine May's sensibility as an American filmmaker kind of crosses over with that.
Yeah.
Well, in particular, A New Leaf, it feels very much like an Ealing comedy, like Kind Hearts and Cornets or something.
Right,
one of these, murderous kind of like
Yeah.
dry.
Well, I was just thinking about like the way the characters come together in A New Leaf as well, and there's like a similar sense of like difference in motivation and like their station in life. And I think there's more of an ethnic coding in the Heartbreak Kid, but I felt like there were some like touches of that in A New Leaf as well. It's maybe more ambiguous there.
Yeah, I mean, but here it's extremely explicit. I mean, this is an assimilation satire, basically.
Right.
This is kind of the desire of a Jewish trope of a man, I guess, that is like chasing a shiksa goddess.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, I think you really see that in the two different weddings.
Yes.
Like the first wedding is so Jewish.
Yeah,
so
they break the
intimate
glass.
and so warm and familial.
They play Havana Gila in the party afterward. They break the wine glass. Right. I had to think of Goodfellas a little bit watching scenes like that, and also how the way that Karen's mother that goes, he's not even Jewish.
Yeah.
And that's, I was thinking that in my head, seeing the ending of the Heartbreak Kid. I mean, she's not even Jewish. But still.
It's like now they're in this big church ceremony. You've got the wedding party and like the priest and everything. And it's like, and he's in fucking Minnesota.
And again, like with the framing from Elaine May, like when at the beginning, they're always constantly sharing the frame. They're doing their first dance and all this stuff. At that, in the big, gaudy, sort of like Christian Minnesota wedding, they're walking down the aisle, and then Grodin steps into his close-up, and it's just him because he won, He's Marty Supreme or whatever. He made it, and it's just, this wedding is just for him now.
Totally.
Like this is his big victory.
That also, I mean, like this is the second Elaine May movie in a row when talking about the first wedding to feature a wedding inside of what's ostensibly an apartment or like a much more contained space.
Yeah, you're about the first one. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
It's very tight.
A New Leaf has a scene like that too, and there was actually a great picture in this book I've referenced throughout the episode cycle. Esther Zuckerman's Falling in Love at the Movies. There's a great picture of Elaine May directing on the set of A New Leaf where she's in the wedding dress, looking through the eye hole of the camera.
That's cute.
It's like so much of her personality is in that photo.
Well, we clearly love this movie and have a lot of thoughts about it. Are there any quick shout outs or notable moments that we want to mention?
We're all like, me.
Yes.
Julian,
One important player in the making of this movie who we have not discussed yet on this episode, but who we have discussed in a notable past episodes of ours is cinematographer Owen Roisman.
And
yes.
In addition to Elaine May's excellent directorial hand, this movie just looks so much better than most other Neil Simon movies because of
But
Roisman.
all those shots of cars moving on the highway. This is 1 year after The French Connection. You feel a little bit of it there.
Totally.
Yeah. But also, I mean, like the other two shots of the movie. I mean, there's really more than two, but two I want to single out are when they're at the hotel in Miami, and then Lenny is staring down at the pool and the camera quickly pans back up to him on the balcony. I loved that shot. That felt very like French Connection as well.
Yeah.
But then the first time you see Sybil Shepherd Kelly in the movie,
is going to bring this one up too.
Yeah, with the sun glaring down the lens, as she says, "That's my spot."
It's iconic.
Yeah, and you get that
truly.
twice.
Yes, you do. And then like later in the movie, like the conversation that happens when that weird lounge performer is going on, like the light. I love
so fucking weird.
Love the lighting in that scene. It's just a feast to stare at. And then like later on too, like when there's that kind of weird ritual that Lenny and Kelly are doing before they get married.
Oh, yes.
Another impeccably lit scene. It's a great movie even without his touches, but like his documentary sensibility just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
You were talking about the laying all the cards on the table scene. I just like that. And then also the scene of Lenny and Kelly in the car, like once he's kind of run after her in Minnesota. Like both of these scenes are so interesting because they don't have any cuts. Like these are both just like single shots. And it really, I think Charles Grodin is excellent in both of these because these are both basically monologues.
Confessional.
Like,
that scene in the
confessional
car
monologues.
is really, really tough,
Yeah, I'm really blown away by his delivery of both of those, particularly the car scene.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And just kind of like very pushy and determined. It's like, I've ruined my life.
Yeah. And that's
and you
when
feel for him.
You feel for him a little bit,
like
but you
second,
also he's kind of like, oh, I haven't heard you laugh. Like, where's the laugh or whatever?
Yeah.
Which
I know.
drives me
Yeah.
crazy because it's very like, oh, why don't you smile more? Like suddenly it's his perfect image of her that he created just as like a counter to Lila is now starting to disintegrate a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. On the point of Kelly, there's one line in this movie that always just gets me. It's right before the nightclub scene. The dad, thank you. The dad comes up and is like, "Hey, Kelly, we're at this table. We got to go." And at first, Lenny is like, "I'm gonna leave," and she's like, "No, like he can come to the table." And her dad is like, "Listen, he said he's not going to be there." And she says, "Oh, he'll come if I ask him to."
Yeah.
And that moment to me is so telling of the way that her brain is operating in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't think we despise her the way we feel for Lenny.
But she's very responsible for a lot of this.
She's setting it up and
she knows what she's doing.
It's a little be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of that I think is very interesting in this movie. I think Sybil Shepherd is incredible.
She's great in this.
Yeah.
In this
It's
movie.
her second film, right?
Yeah.
After Last Picture Show.
That line to me and the delivery on it is like her whole character.
I also really like that line if you think about that and like what the scene where he's first telling her about Lila.
Yeah.
Because she kind of giggles at Lila's name and says like, does Lila come when you call her?
Yeah.
So I think these two lines paired together several scenes apart are really interesting.
I like that.
Just all some of a few great double entendres in the script too.
Yeah.
Like, don't put a Milky Way in someone's mouth when they don't want it. Or like, oh, I'm sorry, did I get you wet?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Thanks for the nut.
Thanks for the nut. Yeah.
The nut.
But one thing about that scene also, I love Grodin. He code switches.
He does.
Yeah,
totally.
in his voice, he suddenly starts, "Hello, sir."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he suddenly starts putting on this strange, like accent that's, as white mainstream America as he can get. No, this is a great movie. One thing that I want to shout out is, very early on, Lila saying it's all new for me too. That's I'm crying. That's when I start crying in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then this other scene with laying my cards out on the table.
I mean, we can talk
need
about
to
this
talk
for an hour.
about this. Yeah, because this is a slow motion car crash in reaction.
This is
of
like
these
the scene of the movie.
This is a set
brilliant,
unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean,
brilliant.
and it's as good. The framing of it too. It's just one long take.
Yeah.
This that doesn't move really.
Yeah.
And these actors just their very subtle change, the image. Their very subtle change in their expression of just the longest jaw drop in history.
Yeah. Oh, with the mom.
This is as good as anything I've ever seen in a Kurosawa movie or whatever.
No, I'm with you.
This is unbelievable.
This is the scene that I always go to when I pull up this movie.
Yeah.
I want these 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I want to relive them because I'm like the journey that everybody takes is so hilarious, and the dad just like all of a sudden turning and he's like, "Get him out
Just
of
like
here!"
one of the best
Like,
lines is like, "Not if you tie me to
to
a
a
tree and
tree.
put a bomb in my mouth or something."
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's
Yeah.
so fucking
Yeah.
good.
And I mean, the line he ends that scene with, I think, is a pretty good one to transition out of this movie. You stay the hell out of Minnesota, you goddamn newlywed.
Very good.
I want to rewatch this movie again.
I know.
already.
Me too. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yes.
Masterpiece.
Yes. But now it is time for us to
Agreed.
say hello to the Goodbye Girl,
That's true.
which came 5 years after The Heartbreak Kid, another Neil Simon script. That's why we're talking about it. This time directed by Herbert Ross, who, to my understanding, is another, like Gene Saks, another veteran of the theater. Who
and
also,
does a few Simons, I think.
Yes. A few Neil Simon films. Also, very adept at film, as evident in The Goodbye Girl. And yes, this film, released in 1977, starring Richard Dreyfuss and Marsha Mason, is not to be confused with The Bye-Bye Man.
Oh,
what is this?
This is a
okay.
This is a horror movie from around 10 years ago.
Okay.
I don't know very much about it, but I do know it was kind of considered a movie that, despite being pretty poorly reviewed, was notable to people who watched it.
Oh my gosh.
It's directed by Stacy Title, starring a lot of names I really don't know, with the exception of
I don't know why I'm not surprised.
Carrie Ann Moss and Faye Dunaway are apparently in The Bye-Bye Man.
Heard of them.
Yeah. Supernatural horror film. I just remember, I didn't see it. I remember it being talked about when I was in college, but not to be confused with The Goodbye Girl.
And
that's true.
The Goodbye Girl is also not to be confused with a movie I found called The Goodbye Bird, which is a film from 1994 where a teenager is accused of stealing his school principal's prized talking parrot. No one in this movie is anyone I've ever heard of, but it's Sidney Pickett and Christopher Petiot in the main two roles, I guess. This seems like a fun enough concept.
Okay, cool. I would also say that The Goodbye Girl is not to be confused with Goodbye, Mr. Chips, which is a really great film. I haven't seen it in a long time, but this is from 1939, I believe. Perfectly sweet film. I think this is one of those precursors to a film like Mr. Holland's Opus, kind of a celebration of teachers and the teaching profession. Much beloved film, but not The Goodbye Girl.
I would say also that The Goodbye Girl is not to be confused with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a 1966 spaghetti western by Sergio Leone, starring Lee Van Cleef, Eli Wallach, and Clint.
Somebody named
Eastwood?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He's done a movie or two, hasn't he? He's directed. Did he also direct a movie or two?
Maybe.
Okay.
Funny thing is, I actually
going over my head here.
I have not seen as many movies as I watch. I've seen maybe 4 Clint Eastwood movies out of the many there are to choose from. So definitely a blind spot for me. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a movie I have seen. It's not any of the things in its title. It's great. It is a great movie.
But not to be confused with The Goodbye Girl.
Definitely not.
Very true.
And there is also, I learned, a 2004 remake of this film.
Oh man! When I rented this from the library, I thought I was getting the 1977 one, and I got the one with Patricia Heaton and Jeff Daniels.
Did you watch it?
I did not watch it. I'm very careful about what I spend my time watching, and I was like, if this is not going to be the one, if this is not the one that we're going to talk about, I am not watching this.
I hope this is a better Neil Simon remake than the Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah.
Good point there. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're talking The Goodbye Girl from 1977. Julian, what's this movie about?
So, a ostensibly down on her luck actor and dancer named Paula McFadden and her daughter Lucy live in a Manhattan apartment with Paula's fellow actor boyfriend Tony. And despite the stability they've come to expect, Paula and Lucy come home one day to find that Tony has abruptly left them to take a role overseas, before also finding out from the building's landlady that Tony has sublet the apartment to a friend of his named Elliot Garfield.
Diabolical.
Arriving in the middle of a rainy night, Elliot knocks on the door to Paula's initial resistance, before a plea from a nearby payphone on Elliot's part leads to Paula relenting and letting him inside. It quickly becomes clear that with his idiosyncratic daily rituals, Elliot is an eccentric. But he and Paula can relate more on the level of inconsistent successes of their careers in the performing arts, not to mention sharing the company of the delightfully precocious Lucy. Paula attempts to revive her career, and Elliot is cast in a misguided production of Shakespeare's Richard III, and a traumatic incident occurs along the way that serves as one of a number of events that gradually bring Paula and Elliot closer together with Lucy in tow.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Had anybody here seen this movie before we, agreed to watch it to talk about it?
No.
You'd seen this?
I had not.
I had not.
So
this was a new watch for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your history with it, James?
Oh, this is one of these movies that I like, growing up, local video store, had a deal, $7 for 7 movies for 7 days, and as like an early 13-year-old, I guess, 12-year-old or whatever, wanting very interested in movies. You watch all the Oscar movies.
Yeah.
This one Best Actor for Richard
Right.
Dreyfuss. He was the youngest Best Actor winner.
Yeah,
what
at the
I
time.
understand.
Yeah.
So I definitely watched it in that era, and at the time really enjoyed it, and still to this day, I enjoy it. It's not my
With some reservations.
with some reservation. I mean,
There's like a 15-minute segment of this movie right in the middle
yeah,
that kind of lost me,
Mm.
and then it kind of got me back. But I'm like you, like I had a perfectly good time with this.
yeah, it's a perfectly good time.
Perfectly good
Yeah.
time, like enjoyable. The performances are really sweet, kind of across the board. I think Richard Dreyfuss is pretty deserving of praise in this. Like he's delightful, and I feel like you totally take the ride with him. I think Marsha Mason's great. The actress Quinn Cummings, yes.
Quinn
Quinn Cummings, thank you.
They were
plays
all
Lucy.
nominated.
All
right?
nominated. Yeah, there
Yeah,
you
all
go.
three of them.
And so yeah, this movie like just kind of hums along for the most part.
It goes down easy.
With
mostly.
Yeah.
this like 10-15 minutes in the middle, then I'm like, what happened there?
But yeah,
Right, go
like
ahead, yeah.
and Quinn Cummings, who I think she's 10 when she gets that Oscar nomination.
Yeah,
Like I'll just say it right out front. She was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
delightful. It's
It's
very like
Lucy-
Tatum O'Neal in Paper Moon.
Definitely.
It's
And
like,
there's a reference to Tatum O'Neal, isn't there?
there is.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
the movie knows what it is, but yeah, I think like without a doubt in my mind, one of the greatest child performances in any film ever. That was like, I mean, I've said occasionally from time to time, like I'm only 29 years old, but like I want to have kids someday, and movies like this remind me why. It's just like that kind of precocious child is just like really gets me. Just that really hit me right in the heart. But yeah, the whole movie, I think, it's not quite as biting, or I mean, to use an expression that Esther Zuckerman uses in Falling in Love with the Movies, it's not as mean as The Heartbreak Kid. But I do think, like, I felt watching The Goodbye Girl. It's an interesting movie to see as a follow up to the other two that we're discussing, because I feel like it has a lot of the better qualities of both in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like a similar in its setup, a similar feeling of like, oh, this like these two people are kind of put together. They're put together by circumstance, and their association is very like hurried at the beginning. Or I mean, not that it's hurried, in what we see before, what's on screen in the other two, but like we don't really get to know them well before they have to know each other.
Sure.
Yeah. But also just like the insularity of the setting in, a tight New York City apartment. I mean, this one feels tight in a way that the Barefoot in the Park apartment set does not. That, and also, I mean, I noted in the other films like Barefoot in the Park, I mean, you deliberately don't get much insight into the characters' careers. And then in The Heartbreak Kid, I mean, interestingly, you get like a lot more insight into the life of the Corcoran family than you do into Lenny Cantrow's life,
Right.
or into
He sells bats and balls.
right.
But he can't throw.
Yeah.
That's true.
And
He had some sort of accident when he was stationed domestically in the army or something, right?
Never
Louisiana.
overseas.
Yeah, never overseas.
But meanwhile, some of their family friends, some of the Corcoran family friends manufacture tear gas. And
That's
things
true.
like
There's a lot of money in tear gas.
that. That made me think of
what
made me think of
the Graduate.
feels
yeah.
like?
Well, that made me think of the joke in A New Leaf of like, oh, you're not related to the Boston Hitlers, are you? Oh no, we're from Glen Cove.
Oh no, we're going back to the Heartbreak Kid.
I
No,
know,
not
yeah.
anymore.
It's
Not
hard not
anymore.
to,
But
yeah.
like, yeah, there's that same sense. But you actually, in The Goodbye Girl, you get some real insight into the characters' careers, which is something I really appreciated about the movie.
I actually really like this about this movie.
Yeah.
And I found out in researching it that this is a movie that is really beloved by the acting community
Sure.
because of the way that it depicts their characters. As you said at the top, there are peaks and valleys to what happens for them career-wise. It also is depicted, I think, in a way where it's kind of funny what happens to them, but it is not mean.
Mhm.
And there's also a sense of authenticity of like the spaces
Yeah.
and the kinds of people that you encounter when you're in that line of work.
But also the Richard III material,
Yeah.
like and that relationship that he has, the Dreyfuss character has with the director.
The director, yeah.
All of those themes of trust really come up to the forefront in that relationship of
Mhm.
like, you gotta look out for me and make sure I gotta be able to trust you that I'm not gonna look like a fool out there. And of course
Right.
he does, and that's like one of the big gags of the movie. That director is really good. This guy, Paul Benedict.
He is. He's got a face, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's been around. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I wish he had a more visible career. He's Guffman in Waiting for Guffman.
Oh, yeah.
Or not
Yeah.
Guffman, I
Right,
guess.
right.
And he's in Spinal Tap, too. He's funny in that for a second, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just as God made me, sir. He plays like a hotel
Right.
clerk or whatever.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just as big. I'm just as God made me.
And he's in A Mighty Wind as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
he's in the
he's
Christopher
popping up
Guest
in the guest
troupe.
verse.
But like never, it's rare you see him in a role like with this kind of heft and size.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
But I think you're right. That moment speaks to what this movie is able to capture in very little moments. You really feel like you get to know their relationship. You feel like, okay, maybe this is going to turn out okay for even just a moment, in a way that a movie that doesn't care as much about the characters or their settings would do. So yeah.
Yeah. And like to the point of settings too, I mean, like we talked about the great cinematography in The Heartbreak Kid, but I thought that The Goodbye Girl had some really great cinematography moments too, but not in the sense of like Owen Roizman is really great with these vast locations, but also, depicting, intimate conversations as well. And I thought that, the thing in the cinematography of The Goodbye Girl, which to give credit to the cinematographer, that's David M. Walsh, it's just all these like really fast pans that occur inside of the apartment. Like you really feel like, to quote the great Bruce Dickinson, you're exploring the studio space.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's you get these shots where like it's not like you get long takes, but it's not like the Elaine May style where it's static. The camera is static. It's more like starts in one corner of the room and then the blocking takes it to another in a way that I think still feels very organic, and it's this kind of cinematic that really hits the spot for me.
Yeah. How about you? What was your background with this, Madeline?
I knew very little about this movie, and honestly, I don't think I liked it as much as you guys did. And I don't know that I can fully understand why. I didn't really connect that much with Marsha Mason's character, honestly. And I understand, like, I can watch this movie and understand on like a logical level, like why people would root for her. But I feel like there's something missing for me in the performance that actually makes me care that much.
You're not alone. Roger Ebert has said this.
All right. I'm glad that I have somebody.
It's ironic
on my
too.
side.
Because it's true that like Marsha Mason, this movie was written for her.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
is very interesting to learn.
And she was
married to
or
Neil Simon at the time, and this was all like tailored for her.
Yeah.
And this was her like 4th Oscar nomination or something. She's an actress that I'm not that familiar with. to be
Yeah,
honest
me
with you.
either, which is
Aside-
odd because she's so lauded.
Yeah, she's like Glenda Jackson or someone
Yeah.
that like had a ton of Oscar nominations, but whose
But
career
we don't really talk about them
Yeah,
anymore.
it's weird. They don't really have much of a cultural footprint.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, no, I hear you. There are moments with her that I think are really winning. Like one moment for me is the car show.
Yeah, I was just going to say
yeah.
it too.
The car show for me is like really sweet. And again, too, this movie gets little moments, I think, really well. Like, yeah. And I think, everyone's mileage is a little different on like whether that fills in enough gaps for you in the other spots, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like the car show scene. I think that that's an effective scene. And I think that I like how she gets a little flustered because it adds a little bit of characterization to her. I understand that she's going through a very difficult time in this film. But like, for example, she just at one point just kind of like freaks out on him in a way and I'm like, I don't understand what she's upset about in this moment. I think a lot of it is kind of PTSD from the fact that like she's a goodbye girl. Like these men keep like kind of saying they're going to commit to her and then leaving for various reasons.
But it does feel like a huge leap.
But yeah, it's like there's just a moment where it's like they have this huge blowout argument like the morning after they hook up.
Right.
And it's like Lucy's upset and she's upset, and it's just like they're both kind of like, oh, but you're going to be yet another guy that leaves. And I think that as a woman, I watch this and I'm like, that's not a woman's point of view. Like that to me is like such a superficial way of looking at women's emotions when it comes to relationships of like, oh, this woman has just been dumped again and again, so she has this good thing and she's just gonna mess it up by yelling at him for no reason. That's kind of how I felt in that scene. I'm like, what is he has done nothing to upset her.
Well, this moment comes from a stretch in the movie that the movie lost me for a bit, in part because of that. Because I was like, okay, wait, like, why is this character?
Why
doing
are
that?
we arguing?
Why? Yeah. Why did that come up? Why does it have to be such a point of contention between these characters? The whole bouncer sequence of this movie, where Dreyfus is like a bouncer at some sort of like
strip club
or something like that. Yeah. Always like a little funny. It felt very forced that like something has to happen to him where his face is all torn up or whatever. He's like kind of
debased himself. He's like, it's still an entertainment.
Yeah, right. But then also the way in which he kind of pushes himself on her.
Yeah.
Is like always like
that also kind of comes out of nowhere.
It kind of comes out of nowhere. Yeah. And it's like, and it is one of those moments too, where like as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, there has to be some kind of connection with these characters for us to get to this place where the ending is a reference to what happened before.
Yeah.
But it happens like very, very, very fast. And it happens in a way where you're like, maybe they're having this argument because she felt like she was pushed into this. Like, I don't really know. But that stretch of the movie was a little weird to me. And I can't remember when it kind of got me back, but it kind of got me back towards the end. There was an interview with Neil Simon that he did actually a really interesting conversation he had with the BBC. They have this series called Desert Island Discs where they talk to celebrities or writers or artists and have them create their own sort of like 7 or 8 song Desert Island disc. One of the things he talked about is he was being gently criticized for the fact that he likes to make happy endings often. And
that's why he doesn't like the Heartbreak Kid.
And that's why he's like the Heartbreak Kid. Exactly.
Well, the interesting thing about the Heartbreak Kid is that that's not the ending that he wanted. Apparently, she deviated from the original. This is where we're all going back to
Heartbreak Kid. Yeah. But the word he described, or the word that he chose to describe his outlook on endings that the public saw as more happy, for him were hopeful. And I feel like this movie has more of that type of ending,
totally.
Where it's like, you don't get the like, oh, they really are back together. It's more of just like, there's a gesture that makes us kind of leave feeling better about where things are. And
they've gained each other's trust.
Exactly.
I trust you will come back. Goodbye is not forever.
Yeah. Right. I don't know if I necessarily love how this movie ends, but I can respect that perspective of storytelling and how it's like, there's this insinuation that we're meant to think about these characters after.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't wrap up in this way where it's like, we know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I think my favorite example of an ending like that is the ending of Carol, where it's like one gesture says so much, but like, yeah, I mean, it's, that feeling of like, it's happening in the rain. Like, I mean, it's a very conventional ending by a lot of standards of romantic stories and not even just comedies. And I mean, like, we're kind of already getting into it, but like, The Goodbye Girl stood out of the bunch of films we're discussing to me as like, for its optimism, as compared to some more cynical touches in The Heartbreak Kid and Barefoot in the Park, stood out among the bunch for that reason to me. And, as the follow-up to those films, like, are there elements of The Goodbye Girl that you think explain why it takes this more optimistic outlook? Or are there elements that you think exemplify that?
I mean, honestly, if you look at The Heartbreak Kid, I'm sorry. As James was pointing out, so much of, I think, the kind of lack of optimism in that film is actually to Elaine May's credit. And it's almost like counter to maybe what Neil Simon's intentions were with a film like that.
That's a great point. But I had to wonder too that like, The Goodbye Girl is something that it comes later in Neil Simon's career. Like he's around 50 by the time that this comes out. And like maybe there is just a little bit of that sense. Like it was notable to me too that this is the only movie of the bunch where there's a kid.
Yeah.
And that like, maybe there's a sense of like for the good of
the
Lucy,
children.
for the good of the kid. That like, and also, for him as a writer who's lived a little more by this point, there's maybe
and has daughters
and has his own
and
daughters.
had to become a single parent after
Right.
his wife passed away.
And he's writing a part for his wife.
For his
and,
wife, yeah.
He's starting to get a little bit more introspective in that way, sentimental, really.
Yeah.
And after this is when he starts doing his like whole autobiography trilogy,
Yep.
right?
Like Brighton Beach Memoirs.
Brighton Beach Memoirs,
Yeah.
Biloxi Blues, and Broadway Bound.
I think you're right.
Broadway Bound.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's getting into that mode of like really looking at himself a little bit more.
It
Yeah.
does feel
This
like
is the
he's
start
put a
of it.
lot more of him into this character that Dreyfuss plays. Not fully to the extent of other later films, but I think more so than in the other films we talked about today.
Yeah, and it's like that to me, I think, combined with a few other elements that are mentioned, like, I am grateful for the criticism that you brought up, Madeline, about how this is definitely a man's point of view on this relationship. But I feel like those elements where, you can feel the wisdom that he's gained with age, like those are the moments of the movie that to me are redeeming qualities of it. It's part of why the presence of a kid, like it touches me so much, because I think that maybe I'm just very fond of precocious children, having once been one. But I think now I guess this is what you call post-cocious. I had to say it, but but I think like there's something about like the way that Lucy is written that feels very, very genuine too. And that in the sense of like, as a kid, like, there's maybe like a little less perspective to have developed, but there's just like the innocence of that character combined with the outsized wisdom of her age. It feels very genuine to me.
Does anybody have a moment in this movie we want to shout out?
Well, I was just talking about Lucy, and there are many moments with her that I would love to shout out because I love Lucy. But I think maybe my favorite line of hers in the movie is there's that scene, maybe my favorite scene with her is when she gets sick after eating dinner one night.
Oh, yeah.
And she says to Richard Dreyfuss's character, Elliot, at that point, "Have you seen The Exorcist?" "Yes." "Then you better get out of the room."
Yes.
Yeah, I do like what a movie nerd she is. It's very sweet.
Well, also, like, this is 1977 and she's like 9 or 10 at that time. So she would have seen The Exorcist when she was 6.
Yeah. Or at least is aware. Culturally, it's out there.
Right.
You brought up the Tatum O'Neal
I
reference,
think
though,
you
too. You talked about how it was there, but this movie feels very situated, in its time and aware of art. It's a movie about artists trying to make it living in a world aware of the art that's out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we talk about guitar playing accuracy?
Yeah. Well,
we'll bring it back.
To put it that way. Yeah, we haven't done this in a little bit, but I mean, you hear guitar more than you see it played in this movie, but that moment when you do see it played, I didn't trace very much accuracy there.
That's
I didn't
the
trace
thing.
much
It's like
accuracy
they
either.
barely show his hands. They barely even show the guitar.
Because the whole idea is that he's naked.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just
That's
like,
yeah.
But
sleep
even
in the nude. It's
I
so
think that
corny.
he holds it again in a later scene, clothed, and you still like don't really see
It's the scene you're
anything.
talking about
Yeah.
right now on the bed.
Yeah,
He's like playing a little something.
yeah,
But
like
it's
to calm her
very
when she's sick.
carefully angled away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really just
Yes.
his back. And yeah, I mean, I think this is the worst. It feels like they didn't even have Richard Dreyfuss ever hold a guitar before turning the camera on.
Take away the man's
He
Oscar.
seems
Get it away.
so uncomfortable holding a guitar.
I mean, it's a worthy performance for all of its other aspects. In
Oh
my
yeah,
personal
no,
opinion.
it's very fun. It's very winning
and
in a lot
this
of
is,
ways.
And
yeah.
this is the same year as Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I know,
Yeah,
man. Boy,
crazy
he had
year
a
for
hell of a
him.
77. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of commentary about childhood in cinema.
I do
That's
think
true.
he's better in Close Encounters, though.
I do too.
Yeah.
I agree.
I
Yeah,
do too.
It's
very
I mean,
affecting.
I've spent more
role.
time with that movie, so I can't really balance the scales yet. But of what I've seen, yeah, I can't argue against that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then just so many great Lucy moments. I also enjoy when they're in the horse-drawn carriage later in the movie, and then Elliot says to her, like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I know you don't like being called a kid," and she's like, "I'm a kid. It fits."
Mhm.
See, That line is perfectly cute. I don't like that scene because I feel like it's such a Debbie Downer with this movie.
No, it's okay.
But
We were the Barefoot in the Park Debbie Downers.
I actually do not like this movie very much either.
I'm glad to hear that.
To be clear,
he says to her at first, like, I want to. He's basically saying, like, I want your permission. Like, I want to make sure that we're in this together.
Right.
And then by the end of the scene, he's like, actually, I don't care. And I'm like, that deflates the sweetness of this scene, because I do think it's nice for him to be like, hey, if I'm going to be with your mom, I'm part of your life. And I want to make sure you're on board with that. And then he's basically like, kid, I don't give a shit what you think. By the end of that same scene, and I'm like, which is it?
Right.
He's shown through this movie that he does care about Lucy. So there was an opportunity to build him in this scene as more of like a step-in father figure for her, and they just lose it by the end of the scene, I think.
Yeah, no, I no notes. This movie has like real kind of up and down energy.
Yeah.
All the time.
I did like the line towards the very beginning where she's talking about how she's going to have to go back to dancing, and she says, I'm 33, I can hardly walk anymore. As a person that's 33 and has trouble with the walking occasionally, I did relate to that.
Yeah.
Right on.
Also,
well, not right on, but yes.
The first time that Lucy says kid when she's reading the breakup letter from Tony, and then, he's saying, I love being with you and the kid, and she goes, kid?
Yeah.
I think that was the moment when I realized how much I love that character when she says that line. Also really liked the little visual detail, but the way that the houses align, like the stoops align on the block where they live. I mean, it feels like it's designed that way anyway, but the way it is captured on camera. I mean, I've made it very abundantly clear on this podcast. I love a great New York movie, and it's moments like that make me love great New York movies.
There we go.
Are you guys familiar with Harold Ross at all?
Is it
Herbert Ross?
Herbert Ross, my bad.
That's okay. Beyond this movie, honestly, no.
He's done a couple of other things that I'm aware of. Like he did Lost in Yonkers, which is another Neil Simon.
Yeah, he's
movie,
he's a frequent Neil Simon collaborator. For some reason, I've always been a little bit allergic to his movies. They're a little bit vanilla and kind of plain. He did Play It Again, Sam, with Woody Allen.
Okay.
The Last of Sheila, which Stephen Sondheim wrote, one of his very rare movies. Footloose is like a big deal movie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He did Footloose. Yeah.
That's probably the only movie of his that I've seen is Footloose, aside from this. Apparently, he also did Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Wait, what?
No kidding.
A musical version.
Oh, a musical version.
A musical version of Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I just find it funny since that
could not get away from the Goodbye properties.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Gene Sachs was also, a big Neil Simon collaborator. They directed a lot of plays, and he and Neil Simon had a falling out after he got fired directing a musical adaptation of The Goodbye Girl.
Oh, wow. I did hear that there was a musical adaptation in the works.
Starring Martin Short and Bernadette Peters.
Of Sunday in the Park with George. Yeah.
And also that in an earlier version of this script that became The Goodbye Girl, it was originally known by a different name when it was being written, called Bogart Slept Here.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
The person originally hired to direct it was Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
And the actor
All of these movies are weirdly tied together.
Yeah, they really are.
Herbert Ross also made this movie, California Suite.
Yeah. Written by Elaine May.
Nope.
Oh, wait, no.
Written by Neil Simon.
Oh, that's right.
And
isn't she
co-starring Elaine May?
That's who I'm thinking of.
And Maggie Smith won an Oscar for
Walter
it. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Did she?
I think so. Yeah.
That's not a very good movie, by the way.
But then you were about to say something about who was originally set to star in Bogart Slept Here, and it was
Robert De Niro.
De Niro, yeah.
Bob De Niro.
Yeah, but yeah. I think now we say
get out of here soon. I'm so sorry.
I think now we say goodbye to the Goodbye Girl and hello to some unlikely
shared universe.
Yes. Does anybody else have one for Barefoot in the Park?
No.
Okay. I do. So can I start with that?
Sure.
All right. So, despite having just saved her husband from certain death in what may have appeared to onlookers as an act of reconciliation, it is safe to assume that Corey Bratter's relationship with her husband Paul has not exactly recovered from the many trials and tribulations it has endured in the long run. As a result, Corey and Paul soon bring their tumultuous relationship to a mutually agreed upon amicable end. And while Paul maintains his livelihood as a lawyer, Corey is left to fend for herself financially. While luckily having loving family members to support her should things go awry, Corey remains adamant about finding a way for herself, but a limited set of options leads her into a few lines of freelance work.
I see where this is going.
Though occasionally finding success as a model and an actor, Corey, now donning the pseudonym Bree Daniels, comes to make most of her money doing sex work, but making a pretty penny from her high-rolling clientele along the way. Despite the haphazard nature of this work, Corey, or Bree, manages to find some welcome stability living on her own in a reasonably comfortable apartment and regularly meeting with a therapist. But a rupture in her newfound stability emerges when a detective knocks on her door to inquire about the disappearance of a former client of hers named Tom Gruneman. Initially feigning a lack of knowledge, the truth is that Bree knows a thing or two about this Tom Gruneman and comes to trust this detective enough to cooperate with him in his investigation. As the two get to know each other better, Bree realizes that the sense of understanding and comfort she once hoped for with ex-husband Paul Bratter may have finally come to her in the form of this detective, known by the name of John Clute.
Clute.
Yeah.
Clute, yes.
I rewatched that movie at Metrograph a week before we recorded this, and I just thought, oh, this is crying out to me to be done.
Well, it's also, she's a really horny person. And there we go.
Yeah. And
line of work that will suit that.
Speaking of Oscar-worthy, that Jane Fonda won an Oscar
for it, yeah.
for her performance in Clute, which is such a left turn from Barefoot in the Park.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's like the opposite performance, but it's in a really, really good way. And for Donald Sutherland, too, both of them are playing interestingly subtle in that movie.
Definitely.
But yeah, Clute, such a good movie. The first in Alan J. Pakula's famous Paranoia trilogy. If you have not seen it, check it out. New Hollywood at its finest.
Yeah. Great direction all through that movie. Real moody, very fun.
Gordon Willis photography is a good movie.
And great editing, too. It's very economical. But yeah, that's mine.
Cool. Heartbreak Kid. Anybody have...
I do. Yes, I know you must.
With pleasure. Once again, the Heartbreak Kid has strayed. After a honeymoon cut short due to immense dissatisfaction, as one might expect, Lenny bounces out of Minneapolis and relocates to Chicago, thinking he can no longer ever again set foot in NYC without intense shame. After all, he'd grown fond of the cold weather as it mirrors how he feels inside. At this point, he's got no feeling, no more spark of fiery determination inside him, just cold. By the time he settles in a crummy apartment in a bad part of town, he's got to make a living somehow, so why not accounting? Numbers are cold. Numbers have no feeling. Yes, Lenny decides to become an accountant in Chicago, but not before legally changing his name from Lenny Cantro to the more Greek-sounding Jonathan Markdoukas, staving off any worry he'd ever be found by the Cochrans or the Kellys or the Lilas of the world. From this moment on, he'd work for anybody who'd pay. He had no more qualms. Qualms are not worth it. And sure enough, things started looking up for the guy. Markdoukas married a new, honest woman with no fuss, and he built up a client list of Chicago's wealthiest and most influential. One of them, the businessman Jimmy Serrano, even gave him a nickname, the Duke, which commanded respect and competence. There's no deceit in a sturdy nickname like the Duke. Stately, dependable. But after finding out Serrano is actually one of Chicago's most notorious mob bosses, with money flowing through the police department and plenty of blood on his hands, this silly little man grew back a reluctant conscience. The Duke goes on to embezzle $15 million from the mob, and he even donates it to charity. And after fleeing to L.A., he gets arrested immediately. The FBI wants him to testify against Serrano real bad, but the Duke knows he'll be dead before he makes it to a witness stand. After his wife posts the $500,000 bail, they instantly flee to NYC. Perhaps bygones can be bygones. Maybe the Duke can hide in the hometown of his former life just till he can figure out his next move. Before the FBI can find him, or before the Chicago gangsters can kill him, or before the LA bail bondsman bounty hunters can drag him back across the country.
Love it. The moment you said Chicago,
Yeah,
I knew exactly what it
You're
was.
like, yeah.
That was great though, man. You spin a yarn with the best of them.
It is a big
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have to note too that as Lenny Cantrell, that there is a scene in The Heartbreak Kid where he impersonates a figure of authority,
This is true.
and
Pretty convincingly.
pretty convincingly, and that the same thing happens when he becomes Mardukas in Midnight Run.
Midnight Run.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny. This is my least favorite scene in The Heartbreak Kid.
Mm.
Like, I actually think that scene is like not that good,
Mhm.
but when he reprises it in Midnight Run, it's so much better.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that
You
was
know,
like
with the money.
Yeah.
yeah, about counterfeiting.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
forget what it
Yeah.
is.
That was like, I mean, Midnight Run is a great movie, but I think when I think of appreciating Charles Grodin's performance in it, that's the scene that stands out to me.
Yeah, talk about Oscar-worthy action comedy.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
that'd
yeah.
be fun.
That's everybody deserves an Oscar.
They probably
So
would have,
fun.
category frauded and put him in supporting for that. I learned this on the Blank Check episode that was the movie, despite all of Robert De Niro's success before, that was the movie that made him a bankable star.
Yeah,
That's all his
the movie
movies
to
were
give him
well
a reason.
reviewed, but not seen as financial hits before that. Also, just on the, it's not that it's a double entendre in Midnight Run, but depending on the context, the line, these things go down.
These things go down. Yes.
Yeah.
Plain.
Yeah.
I love that movie. That's also in my Letterboxd software.
Yeah. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I got 3 Grodin movies on there actually.
There we
Oh,
go.
wow.
Hey,
Wow.
man. Maybe he's one of your
Ishtar
guys.
is the other one.
Ishtar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I've seen half
Also
of
by Elaine May.
the Elaine May directorial filmography. I've still got to get to that.
Ishtar
And
next.
Ishtar.
Mikey and Nikki next, then Ishtar.
Like,
If you
Chronological
want to go
order.
chronologically.
Mikey
Okay,
Nicky's a masterpiece. I don't know if you've heard,
Yeah.
but she makes masterpieces.
All killer, no filler.
There we go.
No killer, no filler.
Well, do you mind if I
Yeah,
jump
go
in?
for it.
Go
All
for
right,
it.
well, I'll stay with the Heartbreak Kid here. When we last see Kelly, she appears happily wed to Lenny at a service in her home state of Minnesota. There is a shared excitement between them, but it's a feeling that Lenny appears to slowly be thinking himself out of yet again, this time before the reception can even conclude. Yikes. We don't believe this is going to last, right? We know this isn't going to last, and it doesn't. It's not quite a 5-day annulment, but this marriage is brief. Kelly's dad might not have been able to prevent the wedding, but he was careful to protect her financially in the event of the marriage dissolution. So Kelly ends up okay from all this, perhaps emboldened by the fact that her good looks can seduce and perhaps open doors for her elsewhere in life. Still quite young and perhaps not too drawn to continue with philosophy after all, Kelly starts a career in modeling, moving to the East Coast, and has about a decade-long run of tremendous success in that field. To distance herself from Lenny and a past that someone might be able to look up, Kelly decides to go by a new name, a stage name, one that harkens back perhaps to the golden age of Hollywood glamour, Madeline Hayes. Her father was able to protect her assets when marrying Lenny, but he was not consulted on a lot of Kelly or Madeline's business dealings when she started to make considerable money in modeling. With her career on the downturn, Madeline discovers that her accountant has embezzled almost all of her money. Funny we talk about accountants embezzling money. That's Charles Grodin. Anyway, her accountant has embezzled almost all of her money, and she has to start selling off her stake in businesses that she invested in just to pay some bills. One of these businesses is the City of Angels private detective agency, one that she thinks she'll have an easy time folding up. What she doesn't bank on is that their lead detective, David Addison, puts up quite the fight. His bullshitting energy and overt attraction to Madeline reminds her of a past flame, Lenny, a little bit. But when their chemistry and connection as coworkers actually helps them solve a case, she decides that maybe it's not such a bad idea to keep this business around, as it may actually help her stay afloat and maybe even dust off some of her expert flirting skills around David here and there to keep things interesting.
I don't know this one.
I don't either.
This is the television show Moonlighting
Yes, yes.
Ah.
with Bruce Willis
And Sybil
Sybil
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Yes, and Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd.
I love Moonlighting. I think that show is just phenomenal. And I think Sybil Shepherd actually, that's where she really shines. Like, she's very, very good in The Last Picture Show. She's very good in this film. This has the potential to sound like I'm generalizing her. She has like this kind of siren-like beauty. These movies kind of like know what to do with that, but like not expand like what else she might be able to really do. She's so good in Moonlighting.
Yeah, that is
so
kind
good.
of where she really displays a great deal of range.
Yeah.
I mean, Heartbreak Kid does really, and Last Picture Show. I mean, both those movies really, feel like they're in conversation with her,
Sure.
her, ethereal beauty or whatever.
Right.
And use it to great effect. But like, that scene in the Heartbreak Kid in the car in Minnesota, for instance, that's a very well-rounded, amazing performance, and
her whole performance is great. I just feel like it's like there's like a sustained thing that didn't really continue for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think there was some personal stuff with Peter Bogdanovich, from what I hear, unfortunately, but I'm really grateful that she had Moonlighting, because that show
Moonlighting
rips.
it's a huge step up.
Awesome. Well, I'll round us out. I think everyone will probably get this one. I know at the very least Julian will. When Lenny attempts to break up with Lila, he tells her that she has her whole life ahead of her, that she can do anything in the years to come. But going through a divorce at the young age of almost 22 shakes her and sets her on a very different life path than she had planned. She swears off love and puts all of her energy into a career in television news, and begins going by the stage name Sid Peach. Unfortunately, her quest for power and her time in the evolving world of news propaganda pushes her further and further into right-leaning politics. After years of working her way up, she's promoted to senior news division head at a conservative news network. However, when nepotism rears its ugly head and the network founder / CEO's son-in-law becomes Lila / Sid's de facto boss, she struggles to keep the power and influence that she has worked so hard to amass. Very nice. That's a tough theme to do.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, but
a lot of weird intervals in that.
That's what happens in the succession of her life.
I 100% forgot that she was on that show.
I forgot too.
I remember when she popped up, I was just so excited. I was like applauding on my couch. I was just so excited to see her.
Jeannie Berlin's really having like a huge moment right now.
Yeah.
I mean, like a big resurgence in the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And every time it's just like a pleasure.
Yeah, exactly.
Her latest, she's in The Bride, I guess.
I haven't seen it yet, but I saw it on her IMDb and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then I also forgot that she was very briefly in Inherent Vice, which we covered very early on in our podcast. She's in it for all of like 2 minutes.
And
putting on makeup.
Right at the beginning too. Like easy to get caught in the whirlwind. But yeah.
She's just a delight whenever she pops up in anything. I get excited.
Yeah, me too. Well, cool. Well, we've talked about 3 Neil Simon screenplays.
One more than the other 2.
This is an interesting close-up because I feel like we've gotten to address Neil Simon in a way, but I think peripherally, in a lot of respects.
But it's, like, I feel like
fine.
He's mainly known as a playwright and, it's more like, deserving of the close-up approach that we take in film.
Yeah.
And then like, I still feel like there's so much, at least that I feel like I have yet to learn about Neil Simon. I'm curious to see some of the other films adapted either from his plays or where he wrote the screenplays, whether it be The Odd Couple or California Suite, whatever.
Odd Couple's really good.
I like The Odd Couple.
California Suite, not good. In my humble opinion, not so good.
I just to satisfy my curiosity, I might still watch it. There's, that memoir trilogy from the 80s that launched the careers of like Matthew Broderick and John Cryer.
Yeah,
Biloxi
Blues
is
fun.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. And speaking of Succession, Alan Ruck, that he acted in one of those as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think this has been an interesting close-up. I think it's been a little more like critical than many of our other close-ups, but with a nice balance. And we've had close-ups before that are more like unanimous praise, others that have some of this mix. None where it's been all out panning just yet.
I don't know that we would choose a close up on a person that we're going to pan.
I don't think so. But yeah, I think we got this is a very well-rounded episode in my personal opinion.
It's an interesting episode, I think, because these 3 movies are very distinct in the way that they're written.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting to see him kind of, I don't even want to say evolve, because I watch these Barefoot in the Park, Goodbye Girl, Heartbreak Kid. That feels like a trajectory that makes more sense to me. But just because I feel like The Goodbye Girl kind of feels like a movie that is like half a play and half a movie, whereas the Barefoot in the Park feels like a play and Heartbreak Kid feels like a movie.
Yeah.
Totally. And, part of it is also kind of like both Barefoot in the Park and Goodbye Girl were made by his guys.
Yeah.
And with Heartbreak Kid, that is like a big deviation from his usual sort of like approach. It's a totally different interpretation of his work, while the other ones are very standard interpretations of the Neil Simon brand.
Yeah. Totally.
But ones that were all honored in one way or another.
Yeah,
By the
and
Oscars,
very telling that he never worked with Elaine May again,
Yeah. Well, the next time we get on mics, what are we going to be doing?
Well, we've had a really great run talking about Oscar-worthy rom-coms. I've had such a great time deep diving into this genre. So many revelations. The only two films I saw prior to this cycle were The Apartment and Amelie. Everything else was new to me. But we are going to switch things up. We're going to focus on a different genre now. I guess, if there's any connective tissue here.
We are going to be talking about a genre that's very near and dear to my heart, which is musicals. But we couldn't just do musicals. So we are going for our cycle. We're going to do offbeat musicals. And we're starting with a film that's on my Letterboxd top 4, which is Little Shop of Horrors from 1986, directed by Frank Oz. We figured if we're going to start off our offbeat musical cycle, let's start off with the ultimate offbeat musical that becomes a huge hit in a way that maybe some of the others we're going to talk about don't.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to start strong.
There are going to be a lot of like for us picks in this cycle. Not a lot of crowd pleasers like from a populist perspective, but ones that
except
I think
Little Shop of Horrors, which is what we're talking next week in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a movie. I haven't seen it since I was in 5th grade, which is the better part of 20 years ago now. I'm very excited to revisit it. There are some moments from it that are kind of burned into my brain. I think will feel just as vivid now as they did then, but I'm sure I missed a lot as well. I can already hear the theme music creeping up on me.
Yeah. I've been listening to it a lot. My wife has choreographed a number of numbers for kids with that music.
Number of numbers.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Excited to get into that. James, thank you so much for being here. I feel like you always, man, come crazy prepared, not just with perspectives, but like with all the machinations of what we do. And so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Dude, pleasure's all ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you. It's such an honor for, to talk about the Heartbreak Kid at such great length.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Codoyannis and Letterboxd at J Codoyannis.
Cool.
Shout out also to Elaine May's biography, Miss May Does Not Exist by Carrie Corrigan. I would recommend you guys read it. A lot of my tidbits come from that book today, to be honest with you. And also Mark Harris's Mike Nichols biography.
Cool.
So, that's my plug. Those two books.
Aside
from that, also there's a documentary that I cut that is now available for rent and purchase on iTunes, Amazon Prime, all the places, called Ron Delsner Presents.
Right.
Directed by Jake Sumner, who also did Bob of the Park.
Yes.
Which came up earlier through Sunday in the Park with George and
Barefoot in the Park, not to be confused. Yeah.
Not to be confused. George of the Jungle.
Awesome.
Oh, delightful. Well, in addition to this podcast, you can also follow us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can also contact us via email. We would love to hear from you at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. If you're on Letterboxd, you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold.
And you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats. If you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. If this is the second or third or eighth or 80th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We've really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please, pretty please, write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots. You can tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Well, let's make sure those guitar strings don't get rusted.
Yes, let's not.